regular meeting of Tuesday, October 14th. We begin tonight with two public hearings. The first one is the consideration of the amendments to Section 2-26 Public Building Commission Ordinance. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Peter Talbot.
Here.
Don Wall. Here. David Belliver. Here. John Malone. Here. Fiona Pearson. Here. Tricia Kramer. Here. Greg Wolf. Here. Dina Allard. Here. And Jim Jinks. Here. Everyone's present.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you read the legal notice, please?
The Town Council of the Town of Cheshire will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 14th, 2025, in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider amendments to the Section 2-26 Public Building Commission Ordinance as follows. Electors and citizens will be heard at the public hearing concerning this proposed ordinance amendment, dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 8th day of April, 2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will accept comments during public comments from anyone that would like to speak on the hearing topic. You may do so by stepping to the podium on my right, your left. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record. Anyone that would like to speak on the hearing topic may do so at this point. Seeing none, I will close this public hearing. Which brings us to public hearing number 2. We've called the roll. This is the consideration of a demolition delay ordinance, which is a new ordinance. Madam Clerk, would you read the legal notice, please?
The Town Council of the Town of Cheshire will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 14th, 2025, in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider a demolition delay ordinance. Electors and citizens will be heard at the public hearing concerning this proposed ordinance, dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 1st day of October, 2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Marinelli, would you, Andrew, please do the presentation on the hearing subject?
Okay, good evening, everyone. So before you tonight is a potential new ordinance that was born out of discussions from the Historic District Commission over the past about year and a half. So I'm going to run, I know everyone has a copy of the ordinance in their packet, but just want to give you the Cliff Notes version of it and then be happy to answer any questions. And then I know that there's members of the HDC who are here today. And then I don't know if Commissioner Councilwoman Allard or Wolf would like to comment on anything. So essentially what this is this is a demolition delay for any structure in town that is 80 years or older. It's a 180 delay for demolition. After the 180-day period, demolition would commence on the given structure that the demolition permit is pulled for. So in practical senses, if you have a structure that's 80 years or older, you would apply for a demolition permit through the OpenGov system, which is the town of Cheshire's online permitting software. You would apply for that permit. It would flag the property. It's going to flag all properties in the system, and then town staff would then be able to check on the GIS to see the age of that structure. And then from there, it would go into the staff liaison for the Historic District Commission, whether that's a town planner, assistant town planner, currently it's myself. From there, the applicant would come to the HDC, a legal notice would be posted, there'd be a public hearing process. The property would be posted. So there's different thresholds for all that, which I can get into if you'd like me to do that. And then the applicant would go before the HDC and then present their case. If the HDC determines that the property is not of historical significance, the demolition permit could then be issued. If not, there is that 180-day hold on the demolition permit. It is from the date the permit is submitted to the town. So the HDC meets currently on the first Monday of every month. The chair does have the right to call additional meetings if necessary. So from the date it is submitted to the town, that's when the clock starts, and that's the same way that the certificate of appropriateness process works now for properties within the historic district. For any properties in the South Brooksvale or Town Center Historic District currently, there's already a demolition delay, which is a 90-day hold on any of those properties. So if you do own a home here, let's just say on Cornwall Avenue, and you submit for a demolition permit, that instantly triggers HDC review, which you have to fill out a COA paperwork for. The 80 years or older, that was hotly debated by the HDC. That has gone up from properties from 1900, that has gone from lists of specific properties within the municipality, and they settled on the 80 years or older. And that's what's before you tonight. Just make sure if I missed anything here. I think it's important to note that it's a delay after the 180 days. The demolition permit would automatically issued by the town. Whereas what's different here, specifically with the COA process, if you were changing your windows, let's say back on Cornwall Avenue, if the HDC didn't approve your COA, you wouldn't be able to change those windows, and that's the power that's vested in them. Whereas with this, for the town-wide properties that are not within the historic district, the demolition permit would go forward, and it's seen as a way for the properties, if there are individuals who would want to salvage portions of the property or to save or relocate the house or structure or whatever, they would be able to do so. But it's the property owner doesn't have to allow any of that. The property owner could submit for the demolition permit, the 180 days could go by. They don't have to let people salvage parts of the house, and then after the 180 days, the demolition permit would still be issued and the property could be demolished. So that's the real simple version. There's definitely more in there. There are also other carve-outs there. Any property that's in the 1987, I believe, list of historic properties in the town of Cheshire, 1986 historic inventory. So there's this great document that was done that covers a lot of properties in Town Center, and then going down West Main Street to about Ives Row, covering some of those other properties. That's also spelled out in here. And then also there's a certain amount of feet from the historic district line, which I believe is, just give me 1 second, 150 feet of the boundary line of the actual historic district, and that would be Town Center and then South Brooksvale as well.
Thank you, Mr. Martelli, and I apologize for calling you the former quarterback for the Platte Panthers football team. I don't know where that came from, but
I've been called worse.
with that, we'll accept public comments at the podium to my right, your left. Again, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record. And ladies and gentlemen, the podium is yours.
Good evening, Chad Horning, 305 Maple Avenue, Cheshire. I just have a few questions in regards to this ordinance. Why are we doing it? And how many properties in Cheshire actually fall underneath the 80 years? Because as years go by, more and more properties are going to keep falling underneath this category. And it just gets cost-inducive to anybody that wants to do work to their property, replace it. I don't see a need why we have to keep adding more layers of government interaction with restricting people doing things to their own property. Can anybody comment up there why this is important to one of you?
So I will, Andrew, I know that this really came from Historic District. Mr. DiTillo here tonight? Yes. Yeah. If you would like to come up and sit with Mr. Martelli between the two of you, you can probably field a lot of these questions, if there are questions, so.
This goes back decades. It's not meant to be any encumbrance on anybody. What we're trying to do is preserve some of the character and cultural history and the historic history that's important, which defines Cheshire, Connecticut. If you look at the pictures behind you, those are both the paintings, all historic properties. Those are some of the reasons why people actually choose to move here. In 1986, there was a study by two architectural historians before the districts were formed, and they went through and found what they called buildings and structures of significant historic importance to the identity of Cheshire, Connecticut. What has happened and what brought our attention to it is since that study, on an average of every 18 months, one of those properties has disappeared and been knocked down and thrown in a dumpster, never to be salvaged again. So we look at this as a way to salvage. I also was involved with the state of Connecticut doing the historic barn survey, which went through the whole state. And it was amazing when we got back 10 years later, how many barns were just gone. A classic example would be, everybody's familiar with on South Main Street, 242, which is Bliss Bridal. Not to pick on anybody, but there was a historic barn behind it from about 1890. We could have had that barn taken, disassembled, and reassembled on another property, but there's no opportunity. All the demolition delay does is just gives an opportunity to maybe speak out to a developer and say, hey, did you consider this might be something worth saving, or maybe someone else might want it and repurpose it. My neighbor's house in Cheshire near Norton School goes back to when Abraham Lincoln was president. It is not in the district, but to give you an example of a repurposed shed, it was a 1700 shed from Vermont that was taken apart, picked up, repurposed, and it turned into a formal kitchen off the house. So there's a lot that can be done. We don't mean this as any obstruction to delay anything. The demolition delay is guaranteed, basically. We might not even need the full 180 days. Everything is different. What we're doing is we have basically, except in the districts, our savior of the historic structures, right, is 0. Even if we get a few, it would help preserve Cheshire's cultural history and historic properties into the future. I always say in the Historic District, we're trying to preserve the past for the future. And this will help us get there. It has been brought up before, but I do believe keeping old buildings out of landfills would probably be a noble cause. And we have no qualm. We're there to help. We don't look at this as an adversarial thing. If we don't need the full 180 days, we won't take it. Some stuff we don't need to. Other people, we have access to the State Historic Preservation Office and Preservation Connecticut. They can take, say, a historic barn that's slated for demolition and actually put it out there, and maybe within 30 days, it's gone. Now it's no longer an landfill, and it's a win-win-win. The town of Cheshire wins. A person now gets to restore that barn, and it's now off the property at no cost to whoever, either a personal homeowner or a developer. So that's basically our goal and purpose with this demolition delay ordinance. Not to be an obstruction, but to work with homeowners, developers in a friendly way, which we do at the Historic District Commission, and make it work for everybody. We'd like to actually start saving some more of our important historic structures in this town.
Before the clerk chastises me, would you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Joseph Totillo, 366 North Brooksvale Road, Cheshire, Connecticut, Cheshire Historic District Commission.
Thank you. Over to you, sir.
I do agree with what you're saying about preserving, but to what extent? Like, I think 80 years is a little, I think it should be like 120 years. I mean, and maybe identify certain properties or certain districts, you know, to say eventually every house will be 80 years old. So to say to save a ranch on Contour Drive that might meet that criteria in a decade, is that worth spending time? And, you know, and the other thing is who actually gets to determine the significance? I see that in here it has all this criteria, but it kind of seems like it's open to the people that are on the board and their opinion of what is historic or not historic. You know, like for instance, it says here, significant person or events or with broad architectural, cultural, political, economic, or social history of the town. Who gets to determine what person or event happened there is significant besides the people on the historic board?
It could be someone from the State Historic Preservation Office
Yeah.
or Preservation
But
Connecticut.
is there a definition of what would be considered a historic event that would happen within, say, 81 years of now? It just seems too open and,
We will be
open-ended.
refining it. You gotta remember, most documents are living documents. We plan on refining as we learn too.
Yeah.
The reason why we picked 80, it wasn't arbitrary. There are some historic, significant historic properties in Cheshire, and those were all Alice Washburn properties. That's the reason why the 80 year. There are some towns in Connecticut that start at 50 and 75. We thought that was too much. Originally, we were looking at even 100, but we wanted to protect the Alice Washburn properties that are not in the district currently. So we thought that was a good goal. And if the property is 80 and it doesn't seem to be significant anyways, a lot of, it could be, how would you say, decided in someone else. We'll listen to whatever presentation is before us. We're looking to not have to save everything, but certainly make a dent in the properties, in the barns and such that are disappearing at an alarming rate. Eventually you lose, how would you say, you lose the identity of what made this town great.
Well, I kind of feel like the identity's been lost with all the construction on Route 10, so it's kind of a moot point at this point in time.
Well-
I guess the question, one more question I'd have for you is how many houses that are 79 years or newer have actually been demoed in the last decade?
Andrew,
And the reason I even asked that question, is if we've demoed less than, say, a dozen homes in the last decade, why are we giving government more control over us? And I'm not saying, your examples are right there, 1700s barn or shed, I understand that, but a 1950s ranch with a shed, I don't see the purpose of it unless we've had, are we tearing down 30 homes a year in Cheshire?
So I pulled the demolition permits. So 2025, there were 7 demolition permits. Of those 7, none were historic none of them fell within the 80-year criteria. In 24, there were 7 that were demoed, 3 of which were within 80 years or older. And then I didn't go all the way back, but 23, there were 7 properties were demolished, 22, 7, 21, 6. So in the past, so 7, 20, 28. So 35 total structures have been demolished or demolition permits have been pulled since 2021.
And
in the
out of
town.
those, how many of them would have met this
I
criteria?
didn't do all years.
Okay.
But I
And
did
then-
the last year 0, and
Yeah.
the year before that 3.
And then out of those, how many of them were commercial structures that had no significance versus a residential? And just as for the record, I'm not against saving things, it's just the 80 years seems a little too soon, or in the open-endedness of a handful of people having control over delaying a project at the expense of the owner. So I'm not saying I'm against this as a whole, it's just, it seems like it's kind of like the blight ordinance that's kind of open to interpretation. And within the blight ordinance, I think the town's trying to change it so they could take possession of home and tear it down within 30 days. So.
It's not our intent.
No, I know
As
it's not your
said,
intent.
if
It's not what the
You've
intent
been
is, it's what's-
before the Historic District Commission.
And I
You've
agree with
seen
you,
how
Mr. Chatel.
collaborative our.
I'm saying, it doesn't, if you're no longer there, that same group of people that make the decisions, it's what the contract says. If you're held to a contract and the standards here, it's not that we can have a handshake deal and say, hey, yeah, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. You might not always be the one making that decision, and it could be given to somebody that has too much power and control and might take it to what the contract reads, because I look at it as it's a contract here.
Yeah, but at that point, no one wins.
I'm not looking for nobody to win, or, it's just, it's fair on both sides,
It's
that's all.
meant to be not an obstruction, but a way to, like, give you an example. Let's say you came before us, let's say you had a historic barn on your property, and you really didn't want it, and you want to put something there, and it's outside the district, that would be fine. You come to us and say, hey, okay, we might even have someone on a list that might want it, and may only need to delay you, not even delay you, but it may only take 30 or 60 days to get it done. Someone may actually come onto the property with your permission, disassemble it, take it off, rebuild it somewhere. It's a win-win. Nothing goes into the landfill. The historic barn gets salvaged and put on another property, like my neighbor's house. And you get you get the empty area where you can do what you want now. We're not trying to stop anybody at all from doing anything with their property. We're just trying to keep historic structures out of the landfill.
I understand that portion, but in this document, does it state that, does the commission have the right to say no to the demolition, and that person has to keep that structure there?
No,
That's-
unless you're
No.
no. The demolition unless you're inside the district, and it was denied, the demolition, even after 180 days, automatically kicks in, and it allows you to, like, say, on an extreme case, nothing happened, no one was interested, and a reasonable amount of time, depending on what the commission decided, went by, you can then destroy or take down the structure. The demolition is just a delay, it's not a end.
So your point behind this is to delay the demolition so somebody else can use those parts?
Yes.
In theory, and that's
Yeah.
it?
Yes, or it's
there's no-
possible, too, say a developer comes in and say, hey, I didn't realize this before, but that is a historically significant property. Maybe we can work together and say, hey, we're gonna try to salvage this. Like, give you an example, Elam Park is keeping, they took down a house on their property, 228 Cook Hill. They still kept the barn, and they're gonna restore it and keep it. Sometimes there's a change of heart, realizing, you know what? It beautifies the property, we can salvage it, and it's a win-win. So even though the house is gone, the historic barn is saved. These are just, it opens a conversation, like we're having now,
Yeah.
to say, hey, maybe we'll look at this a little differently. Instead of just like, oh, I'm in a hurry, I'm just gonna knock this down. I never thought of it that way. You live in Cheshire. It's an important town to you and your family.
I'm not disagreeing with anything that you were saying, I just kind of feel like we just keep overreaching with this, and based upon the numbers that Mr. Martelli's stating and the dates, it doesn't seem that there's even a need for the way this is written. I'm not saying that to save anything, but it just seems like there's more rules each time, and this is just one more level of that. And I think it's the 80 years that's throwing me off, because I'm picturing 10 more years from now, some of these houses have no significance. And I have a feeling that the town is going to become more of a demolition because we're running out of land, but that's a different topic for another day. But let's just agree to disagree on that.
Oh, I agree.
I do agree with most things you're saying. It's just the 80-year hang-up and the power that the government has.
If we find that over time that the document needs to change, we will certainly do so. We have no need. The Historic District Commission is busy enough. We don't need to add to it.
No, I understand that.
If we find that, say after a certain time, say another decade goes by, that the 80 rule maybe isn't necessary, maybe it'll go to 90 or 100, and we just catch what we need to. But that's something for, a future decision, as we see how things unfold. Legal documents try to encompass a lot of things. You do the best you can at the time with the information you have and the knowledge you have, and because other districts have done this, other towns, other places in the country. You try to learn from the best of them, take that, bring it to the table. Eventually, you can look at it and say, hey, does this fit the town of Cheshire? Is this the best thing? Maybe we need to change something. We'd certainly be open to that in the future. So there's a lot of ways to look at it.
And I agree with you, but it's not up to one person to make that decision, whether it's logical or illogical. It takes a lot more than just that. But let's just agree, disagree. I just want to say my 2 cents.
No.
And I'm all for saving things. It's just to what extent, and to let somebody else determine if it's valuable or not. That's all.
Understood.
All right.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Does the council have any other questions? of
The
Mr.
council will ask you to stay for when it comes up on new business. Right now, it's the public's opportunity, and the council will have their opportunity when we get into discussion in a motion, so.
Understood.
Any other members of the public?
Hi, members of the council and the public. My name is Brenda Shane, 62 Hilltop Road, Cheshire. Years ago, when I first got into public office, I served on the Historic District Commission with Joe DiTillo. Janae Chesnow was our head, and now Joe is the head of it. And sitting here, I can't just let that go by and not make a comment as a former member. So I will say that when I served on the Historic District Commission, I found that the people on the commission were really fair-minded, clear thinkers. Some of them were in the field of architecture. And I can't help but feel that being very, very encouraged that at this point in time in Cheshire, while we're growing by leaps and bounds and building buildings everywhere you look, there's a new apartment building or something going up, that finally, we're looking at the town and trying to preserve the character of the town that used to be here, Farmingtown, from years ago, when I used to visit from Waterbury and started working in the 4 prisons, where I worked in all of them. I'm very, very heartened by the fact that this type of legalized ruling or whatever will be done. I think it's a wonderful thing. And I like the fact that Joe is open to looking at it, and as he says, calling it a living document, that it could be open to change in some way. But now we're going to be looking at our buildings. I was going to speak tonight on the trail trekkers, but sitting in our midst tonight is Diane Calabro, our town historian. And when we had a trail trekker walk before, Diane was nice enough to show us all the houses by Alice Washburn, the first woman architect who couldn't even get a license because she was a female. And we looked at almost all her houses in Cheshire. People were taking pictures. We had over 30 people, and it was just great. And it was so exciting. I still remember it. Just to think that a house like that, or something with some beauty to it and character, and can go back and maybe look at it, maybe have the school system go to look at all houses, students in the school system in Cheshire, just see what's in our midst and look at the beauty that was inherent years ago. I just think it's a wonderful thing, and I think he's to be congratulated to have a town, something like this, where they could look at things and bring these old buildings to light, to see what they were from years ago, the architecture, the beauty. I just think it's great, and that's my feeling on it. So
Thank
thank
you,
you
Ms.
to the
Shane.
Historic District Commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brad.
Anyone else?
Good evening. For the record, Paul Bowman, 387 Mount Sanford Road in Cheshire. This is a very important meeting, and it's a very important situation. And if I'm not wrong, I just want to understand, I understand Joe says that it's a living document and we could revisit it and that type of thing. I guess if this is an ordinance, I don't think the Historic District Commission has any say on an ordinance. It would have to come back through the council for any changes whatsoever. So while you may have the best intentions and want to think about it and change it as time goes on, I'm not sure it would work that way. Someone with better knowledge than me can speak to that from the dais. The Historic District Commission knows that I tend to speak my mind on how I feel, and I've had a good relationship and a bad relationship with the commission. I have properties within the commission. I have properties 150 feet away, so I look at this as another take. Every house within the district commission is listed. The addresses are listed. There's some 80 houses. I would ask that the town council figure out how many houses were built 1945 or earlier, and that they notify those people and see how they feel about this. When the Historic District Commission or Historic District was formed, those people had a say. They had a right to say whether they wanted to be in it or not. There's tons of streets. I don't know if anyone took the time to go through the map, either on the council or within Historic District Commission or whatever. There's tons of roads that have houses pre-1945. Wolf Hill, Linwood, Westmore, Peck, Patton, Flagler, Bennett, Ridgeview Place, Cherry Street, Spring Street, Linwood. I can go on and on and on. Those people have a right to be notified if there's going to be that kind of delay on their property. I'm a little hesitant and concerned, as I did some due diligence today. The Ordinance Review Committee meeting minutes of September 18th, under 5, the third paragraph down, it was discussed 59 towns have a demolition delay ordinance. Joe DeTiller reviewed a list of historical properties that have been demolished, including Bliss Bridal at 242 South Main Street, 679 Mountain Road. He further mentioned that a delay would also allow Preservation Connecticut to photograph the property and save developers. I take exception to this, as I do tonight with the mention of Bliss Bridal. It's not fair to a business in our community to be mentioned in a public meeting when that business and that building had nothing to do with the barn that was behind it. It's not fair and it's not right. The property, we own that building. The property at 679 Mountain Road, this further explained in this, another property we own. I've had my issues and I feel targeted. And I don't think it's right. You can shake your head, that's fine, you're entitled to your opinion. Let me speak mine, Joe. So it talks about, would allow Preservation CT to photograph the property and save developers cost. So when you go on CT Preservation Connecticut's website, like I did this evening, and you look, and I'm going to submit these for the record if that's okay. Stop a demolition. That's right on their website. You have the power to protect threatened properties. So I have concerns with that, because that doesn't seem like it's just what we're talking about here tonight. So I'm going to submit these for the record, if I may. Our family's been in town 5 generations. I think we're good stewards of the properties we own. I think we've taken great care, time, and expense to make them look right and to make them be right. You know, you talk about having someone come and have a barn or a house or whatever to tear down, they want to come and look at it. I went to our storage facility today. I have 42 doors from the 1800s that nobody wants. I've tried to sell them. I've tried to give them away. I had the pictures. For whatever reason, I left them at the office. So I've taken great care to repurpose anything I could. And I think this is an overreach. I think it should be given some more consideration. I do agree with what they do, the Historic District Commission. They do a good job. And I think to talk about the Alice Washburn houses, I think that's great. We owned another property that she designed, the Plaza Block across from St. Bridget's Church. That was demolished years ago, but she was an incredible person. And I think her houses should be looked at, but there has to be a different way to save those, protect those, rather than say, well, they're, you know, whatever vintage, so we're going to go with 80 years. I think that's too short. I agree with Chad. I agree with doing something. I think the amount of years maybe should be 100 years. And I think 180 days is too long. I believe the commission has a 90-day delay within the historic district now, and I think it should stay at 90. I think it's fair and reasonable. And I could go on and on, but I'm sure that Chairman Talbot would tell me my 3 minutes are up. The other thing I do want to say about the 679 Mountain Road is every development that we do, any historical structure that's over 100 years old, we have evaluated by Heritage Consultants. And they evaluate it and give us a determination. And I'm going to submit this for the record too. The town already has it. They would have had it in July of 2023. Every property we do, we have analyzed. We've spent, between all the properties and developments we've done, we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this, whether it's an archaeological dig, whether it's preservation of habitat, or it's preserving buildings. So with that, I don't want to say I'm against it. I'm not against this. I just hope that it can be tweaked so it makes more sense. That's all I'm asking. And again, I do want to thank you, Joe, for what you do and your commission does, because it's valuable to the town of Cheshire. It's just sometimes overreaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Would you leave the documents that you want to submit with the clerk, please?
Sure, thank you.
Matt Bowman, 422 Maple Avenue. I too think that I think we have to look at the 80-year period. First off, I'd like to know if anyone knows here what the process is now for a demolition permit. Anyone?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So you have no idea what it takes now.
I mean, I know you go into open gov and I believe it's a 10-day period. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
So in the 10-day period, you don't have to have an analysis of the home for asbestos. You don't have to have an analysis of the home for lead paint. You don't have to have an analysis of, you don't need any of that? I've torn a couple houses down. You do need it.
I'm sure.
So it takes a process, and it probably takes 90 days to do that process. If someone was going to go on to my property because it was 80 years, now the home that I own at 422 Maple, it was my choice. And I love this community, and I've lived in it all my life. But that was my choice to redo that house. And it cost a couple of dollars to do that. It would have been much easier to tear it down. My mother grew up on Maple Avenue. My grandparents were there. I wanted to preserve it, so I did. But it was my choice. No one said I had to or I didn't have to. But I wouldn't have purchased a home at the price that I purchased it if I knew there was a restriction on it. Do you have any idea of what the percentage is of the homes or the number of homes that this ordinance is going to affect? Nobody. You're going to pass an ordinance and you have no idea how many people it's going to affect. Interesting. Glad you guys really did your homework. Like I said, I redid 422 Maple Avenue. I, with Paul and the rest of my brothers, own R.W. Hine Hardware Store. We were told when we bought it, basically as children, I was 26. When we brought in people to tell us what to do, we weren't hardware people, so we brought in consultants. They told us to tear it down. They told us you can't sell hardware out of a museum. Well, it was too important to us. So we didn't tear it down. And I can tell you today, with Connecticut's minimum wage, it's killing us because we have to have extra people on because of the shape of the store. We were taught to tear it down and build a box. Build a square store, that's the most efficient. We didn't do it. I had an option on the Bishop's home in the center of town, but my nephew wanted it, so he took it. My brother George put a small fortune into that on Main Street. So it's not like we haven't tried, and like Paul had named a couple of others, to maintain the look of Cheshire. But there's 30,000 people here. There's not the 5,000 people here when we were born. It's different. People want to come. We built a beautiful school system. We're building 2 beautiful schools. People want to move into our town. You're restricting it. We're going through a plan of conservation and development right now. I'm a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I know most of you know, but so we're going through the 10-year plan of conservation and development. How many properties, how many more homes do you think can be built in Cheshire before it's basically maxed out? Anyone? Well, the number that we came up with was in the 700s. So I'm going to say 1,000. So I'm going to say now you have approximately 10,000 homes in Cheshire. You got the potential to build out another 1,000 homes, and then we're maxed out. Then what's going to happen? You've got an 80-year rule. Your 80-year rule, Paul mentioned a few of the properties, But within 5 years, it's not today. You don't even know what the percentage of the number of homes is. That's scary. But it's not today. What happens in 5 years when the Avon Boulevard neighborhood comes up and all those people are affected? And it goes on. And then it's going to get larger and larger and larger. And when that 1,000 homes, or approximately 1,000 homes, are built in Cheshire, people are going to look to buy these older homes and tear them down, and to use the lots and to build a new home. And if you don't, you're going to stagnate your town. And it's happened in other towns. Look at Hamden. I think there should be a regulation, but I think there should be some notification process. I live across the street from a couple of Alice Washburn homes. They're beautiful. And Alice Washburn, for a little history, I think, if I'm not mistaken, died in Cheshire penniless, unfortunately, because she was a wonderful architect. There's a lot of her architecture in New Haven that's gorgeous.
Mr.
What you
Bowman,
need to-
I'm going to ask you to,
Well, there was another gentleman up here that was here a lot longer, Peter.
well,
so-
yeah, but there was a Q&A
okay.
back and forth, and I certainly gave
I'd like to- I'm
your
almost
brother
done,
an
Peter.
additional few minutes, and you're into minute number 8 now, so
Only 8? I can't believe that, Peter.
I'll go back and
Usually
time
much
it.
longer than that. But, no. If you're trying to do this, I'm going to mention planning and zoning and the plan of conservation and development again. Our last charge was to look at homes that we feel should be preserved. Right now, there's a couple mentioned in our plan of conservation and development, and we're probably going to add a few more to that. But what I'm going to say that's very disappointing is, as we had the town council and had a joint meeting with the town council for the plan of conservation and development, we also invited the historic district to come. Not one person showed up. So, in closing, you can't do, if you're trying to preserve the Alice Washburn houses, preserve them. Mention them. You have a list that the state has given us of historic homes that should be preserved. You're not ready for prime time. You're not even close. You're affecting too many people, and you could be diminishing their values of their homes if they know that someone wants to buy a house and demolish it and build a new house, which is coming, and it's coming like a freight train. So please, not tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Anyone else?
Good evening. Eric Anderson, 383 West Main Street. I want to make sure everybody's perfectly clear on what this really is. And it's just a rather brief waiting period. Maybe 80 years is not the right time span. Maybe 180 days isn't the right waiting period. But whatever numbers you choose, this is an extremely common tactic, 59 towns in Connecticut, but all over New England, all over the United States, this kind of demolition delay ordinance has been in place for generations, back to the 1950s. And all those communities, many of them very prosperous and enviable, are doing just fine. This is just so you can have a little bit of time for offers to come in, alternate approaches to getting rid of a building. And the worst penalty to the developer or to the person who wants to get rid of the building is that they just have to wait 90 days or 180 days or whatever time period it is. And then the building goes away. So when you're planning a demolition, how often do you want it done tomorrow? I mean, how often do you need it done in 10 days or even 30 days? If you're contemplating demolishing your property, you're probably thinking out months ahead. So it really isn't that big a problem, and it hasn't been in so many other prosperous, affluent communities. It often helps those who need to shell out tens of thousands of dollars to a demolition crew when someone else steps in and says, you don't have to pay a dime, I'll take that building. I'll do all the costs of removing it from your property, and everyone wins. So it's just a waiting period. It's a very common practice. There were many of us who grew up here who drive through town and say, oh, we miss all those great old buildings. That's anecdotal. That's how I might feel or somebody else might feel. But the town of Cheshire paid for independent, objective architectural historians to study this town, along with grant money from the State Preservation Office in 1986. Everyone agreed that these 82 properties define what Cheshire is all about. And they're the ones that everyone who grew up here wants to keep driving through town and seeing all of those 82 properties. But they have been dropping like flies. The report published in order to help preserve those properties, it's almost like a hit list. As Joe already said, on the order of every 18 to 24 months since 1986, one of those properties comes down. So the demolition delay ordinance wouldn't stop them from coming down. It would just give the public 180 days to say, oh, can we reach in our pockets and pay somebody to not tear them down? Or can we take them off that property and put them somewhere else where we can appreciate them? Can we keep the materials out of dumpsters and out of the landfill? And I'll take those doors, Paul. Sounds good. And maybe that's all I have to say right now, but thank you all. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Jeff Falk, 560 Mixville Road. I wasn't even going to talk on this. I'm waiting for public comment for the regular meeting, but a couple of things Mr. Bowman said, and I mean the good Mr. Bowman, not the other one. He talked about giving it some more thoughtful consideration, which, listen to everybody here tonight, you know, I love the idea, and it even brought to me, my house is built in 1835 over on Mixville Road. It's a beautiful house, I love it, and yeah, if I ever went to tear it down or something, I would hope somebody would come get some of those floor joists, everything else that was, I don't know the proper term, notch, and, you know, there's one nail in there to hold up everything. It's beautiful when I redid the sheetrock and the plaster. You know, I like it overall, but I think that it just needs a little more tweaking. And yeah, the 80-year mark, I know you have some houses that are in there, Alice Washburn houses, everything else, you took that, but also, you know, notifying the residents who this may affect. That's another good idea. I think if we learn anything from history, trying to communicate and notify people is one of the biggest complaints, although people should be proactive and pay attention. I did read the ordinance earlier today, but that's all I'm saying. Give it a little more thoughtful consideration and go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falk. Anyone else? Going once? I'll close this public hearing.
Before you close it, there was a letter that was sent.
Yes,
I'd like that read into the record if that's possible.
sure. Actually, thank you for reminding me, because I have it right here. So we received a letter late this afternoon addressed to Mr. Kimball, Mr. Glidden, and members of the Cheshire Town Council. The firm is Zabel Schellenberg. This firm represents concerned residents as it relates to ongoing and prospective projects in the town of Cheshire. We appreciate the town's commitment to preserving its architectural and cultural heritage. However, after reviewing the draft demolition draft demolition delay ordinance, we have significant concerns that the proposal as currently written is overbroad, vague, and poses unnecessary obstacles to responsible redevelopment. We respectfully submit the following comments and recommendations. 1, overbreadth of applicability. The proposed ordinance extends to virtually any building or structure over 80 years old, as well as any property within 150 feet of a historic district. This approach effectively subjects a vast portion of the town's built environment to potential demolition delay, even in cases where no meaningful historic value exists. Most Connecticut municipalities apply demolition delay ordinances only to buildings officially listed or determined eligible for listing on the state or National Register of Historic Places. We urge the council to adopt similar, narrower criteria that focus on varied historic resources rather than an arbitrary age threshold. Number two, lack of clear criteria and due process protections. The draft ordinance empowers the Historic District Commission to determine whether a building is quote-unquote historically significant without clear objective standards. This creates uncertainty for property owners and developers and risks arbitrary enforcement. We recommend that the ordinance incorporate specific measurable criteria, such as reliance on the town's formally adopted historic resources inventory, and establish an appeal or administrative review mechanism for applicants who dispute a finding of historical significance. Number three, excessive delay and economic impact. A mandatory delay of up to 180 days combined with publication and signage requirements imposes a substantial burden on redevelopment projects. This extended delay can jeopardize financing, disrupt contractual timelines, and discourage investment in adaptive reuse or infill development. While state law permits up to 180 days, most Connecticut towns adopt shorter periods, often 60 to 90 days, or allow for early waiver upon consultation. We urge Cheshire to do the same. 4, chilling effect on revitalization. The proposed ordinance in its current form could unintentionally hinder Cheshire's efforts to revitalize its commercial corridors and housing stock. Delays of uncertain length without objective standards or streamlined procedures create financial and regulatory risk that deters private investment, precisely the opposite of what the town seeks to encourage. Number 5, constructive alternatives. To balance historic preservation with economic growth, we respectfully recommend the following revisions. Limit applicability to structures listed on formally deemed eligible for the state or National Register of Historic Places. Reduce the maximum delay period to 90 days with a waiver provision if preservation alternatives have been adequately explored. Provide for administrative exemptions for unsafe buildings, partial demolitions, or redevelopment projects approved under existing land use permits. Establish an appeal or administrative review process for disputed determinations. We commend the town for its interest in protecting Cheshire's historic character, but any demolition delay ordinance must be narrowly tailored, predictable, and consistent with state law. We urge the council to revise the draft ordinance to ensure that it promotes genuine preservation while supporting responsible investment and community revitalization. Respectfully submitted, Timothy M. Herbst, Esquire, Zabel Schellenberger, LLC. Thank you, Mr. Mylon, appreciate it. I had it here and failed to include it. So with that, and I'll give one more pass for members of the public. Seeing no one jumping out of their seats, I will close the public hearing. Which brings us to our regular town council meeting of Tuesday, October 14th. We have done the roll call and the pledge. It is time for public communication. Any members of the public that would like to speak to the council may do so. Podium to our right, your left. And Mr. Falk, lead us off, please.
Thank you, Chairman Talbot. Jeff Falk, 560 Mixville Road. So, a few things here to talk about tonight. One thing that just spurred my memory too is maybe doing something with Barney Barnum's childhood home where he grew up. Maybe we can add that to one of the lists of the historic places in town. But that's for another day. One of the things I am here to talk about, and I understand one of my fellow VFW members, Emily Trudeau, has, after we talked about a month ago, she's already talked to you guys about expanding the 100% permanent and total veterans, disabled veterans ordinance or policy, whatever you call it, exemptions, to include more. One of the things I was going to advocate for, and I know you're passing it on to the Budget Committee, so I'll see when the next meeting on that is, but what they call TDIU, which is total disability unemployability. They're not able to work. They're on a fixed income. They might have been rated at 70, 80, 90%, but they're unable to work, so the VA pays them at 100% permanent and total. The difference between the two, the TDIU and a regular 100% permanent and total, is if you're 100% permanent and total just on everything you have going on, you can work as much as you want, no income restrictions. TDIU, you cannot earn more than, I think it's a poverty level or something, $15,000 a year. So those are the ones, and I talked to Chris McCardle today, and man, is she full of information. And she didn't take a breath. She knows everything. And she said, I think it was 7 or 9 people came off that tax exemption from the TDIU, which, what do we figure, about 8,000 a person, about 72,000? You know, in the grand scheme of things, I know budgets are a little tough, but for our veterans, and especially the ones that can't work due to the disabilities, I really think they deserve it. The other stuff on top of that, I know that's part of the discussion, is the spouses. You know, that's an extra added benefit, because when you think about it, if the veteran passes away, he's making $4,000 a month in disability compensation. They're only going to get, I think it's around $1,800 of that. Then you look at Social Security, if they're making $2,500, the spouse probably gets $1,000 of that maybe. So they fall into that realm of they're the ones that need it. And then I know the other one is the land, which, you know, throw it all in there. But I'm truly focused on the TDIU, the spouses, and them for that. And, you know, I look forward to it. Do we know when the next budget committee meet, or budget ordinance?
The plan is to have a special budget committee meeting to address that. I mean, before every council meeting, the budget committee
okay.
meets.
Yeah, so
But
just
there
the one-
needs to be a separate meeting just to look at this issue without other things on the agenda.
Okay, perfect.
I would love for, and I know you serve on our Veterans Committee, I would love for the veterans to weigh in at that meeting.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think
You
it
can
would be very helpful for the
guarantee I'll be
committee.
there, and I'll probably drag my father and let him be a part of things, because he's the chairman of the Veterans Committee. But wrapping up, one last thing was, you know, great choice with Chief Jortner. Yeah, he came on 2 years ahead of me. I worked with him. We worked together throughout our careers, you know, out doing warrant squad stuff, traveling all over the state. Then he went to statewide narcotics and promoted, and I mean, you couldn't ask for a better person. And he'll be a solid choice for however many years he wants to stay there. And then I think you got another great successor coming up behind him. Having worked with those guys for 20 years or around there, you know, I can't say anything negative about him. You know, but when it comes to choosing the next chief, I hope we can do it more like North Haven. They turned around in one day, named a new chief. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Falk, appreciate it. Anyone else?
Hello again to members of the council. I'm also speaking to people in our community who might be watching this tonight and taking part in seeing what's going on here tonight at the town hall. Again, my name is Bryna Shane, 62 Hilltop Road, Cheshire. The reason I came here is because we have a wonderful walking group in Cheshire that started about little more than 3 years ago. And I just wanted to tell people about it and bring it to their attention, hoping to get more people, because as you all know, we don't have a newspaper that we can go to see what's going on in town. And we used to get over 30 people coming to our walking groups twice monthly. And now we've dwindled down in numbers, and I'm hoping more people can enjoy our activities, which are great. So I wrote a few things down so I won't get as nervous talking publicly as I sometimes get. So I'm here to invite everyone to join the Cheshire Trail Trekkers on an upcoming walk. In fact, we're walking tomorrow morning at Mixville Park. So we're a fun walking group in Cheshire. Some of you may already know about us, and maybe you even joined us on a walk. The Cheshire Trail Trekkers joined about 3 years ago, as I said, and I got the idea to start it. Of course, Fiona gave me some challenge to get me involved to do it once I told her about it. And when we started it, it was during COVID, and people were all inside. They wanted to get out. They were nervous. So I said, we need to do something outside, get people walking, meeting each other, socializing, and doing something. It's like almost like a walking group. We also have, usually people lead the walks. So we have a talk about something. It could be history, it could be geography, it could be something like Karen Schnitzer leading on butterflies or birds, or Diane talking about history. So the core group of people that I got to start with me are all leaders in Cheshire. As I mentioned, a couple names, Karen, Diane, Dr. Dimmick, a sociology teacher at Central. We had Eric Heisen, who's on the board of directors of the Land Trust. The people are great, talented, and it's always dynamic. We even had Peter Picone, who works for DEP. He's a wildlife biologist. So anyway, it formed about 3 years ago, and we have a mission statement, we have slogans, we have goals, which I can share with you. But our mission is to promote healthy lifestyles for all ages by providing a variety of interesting walking events in Cheshire with opportunities for education, socialization, and exploration. For all ages, kids, older people, everyone. Our goal is to provide a place for all trekkers to connect, socialize at our walking events, while group leaders, who are often there, present interesting topics during the walks. There's generally a walk on a Saturday, the first Saturday of the month, based on the weather and holidays, and one on a Wednesday during the month, usually the second or third Wednesday. The walks are free. They're a great way to meet new people while you're getting some great exercise. Now, when we first started it, it was just a walking group. Then it occurred to me, what if someone trips or falls or get hurt? They could sue me, perhaps, for liability. So it became urgent to me to have the town sponsor us. So first I went to Director Gwalik at Park and Rec, and then he thought it was a good idea, so we met at the senior center. And we met there for several months. And Stephanie, the director there, was wonderful. But then we drifted over to Park and Rec, where we are now, and that's where we meet and plan our walks. And if you want to go on a walk now, it became, instead of a group, it's called a program under Park and Rec. So we asked people to sign up for the walks, and you could look and see what's going on at the Cheshire Park and Recreation website. All our walks are listed under
Ms. Shannon.
www.cheshireconnecticutmyrec.com, or call their office at 203-272-2743. Our next walk is tomorrow. We'll be at Mixville Park, and it's going to be on dental hygiene, and it's led by the Chespacott Health District. We have a flyer. You could see that too. It's also Chamber of Commerce sent out our flyer.
Ms. Shane, can you give me the web address in your final 10
I will.
seconds?
I'll even give you a copy of this.
Perfect.
Paper.
Could you
And
leave
I
it
just
with
have
the-
a couple more sentences, and I'll be done.
Go ahead.
Okay. The walks, so we have the one led tomorrow, and November 1st will be on the linear path. And Ron Gagliardi will be leading our walk, my fellow constable. He and I are constables in Cheshire. And November 19th, we will be led at the new Stonebridge development by Kim Block, our nurse in our group. And she's going to give us a tour of the whole Stonebridge place, and it'll be very exciting to see that. December 6th, we're going to be at Boulder Knoll on a Saturday. So I have some flyers here, brochures that Park and Rec made up, and I can give them to you with the town council.
If you leave them for the clerk, that would be appreciated.
Yes. So are there any questions from anyone about our walks, or anyone that wants to ask me a question here, perhaps, or learn more about it? As I said, they're free. I've had people that moved into Cheshire who didn't know anybody. A couple of them were grandparents, and their children were lived here, and they didn't know a person. And now, one of them now is a member of the reading group, the reading club, and she's a member of the flower club, and she knows more people than I do now. So it's just like meeting each other, having a nice time, learning, walking, exercising, and
Thank
it's
you, Ms.
very
Shane.
exciting.
Appreciate it.
And it's really nice.
Thank you.
And I think anybody who comes will really like it. And I'm just hoping we can get more people, because it's hard when we had 30 people and we're down to under 10 when it's a free and wonderful program.
Thank you, Ms. Shane.
And I have to thank Diane Calabro, too, our town historian. She led us on some wonderful walks at the schools in Cheshire and Alice Washburn. And Dr. Dimick led us some really great, under St. Peter's Church, we went under the.
Ms. Shane, I'm going to
ground.
have to ask you to
Okay.
wrap. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
I just wanted to comment. I wanted to thank Ms. Shane for the work that she's done. Many of you know that our town was recently recognized with Sustainable CT certification at bronze level. And one of the reasons why we received that bronze level certification was because we needed to complete an equity project. It's one of the most difficult aspects of Sustainable CT. And it was the trail trekkers that we used to fulfill that particular requirement within Sustainable CT. And so Sustainable CT folks were incredibly impressed with the organization, with the community involvement, the historic and the environmental dimensions, and the health dimensions, but the equity dimensions in terms of how accessible they were, all ages, all people, really bringing people together. So I just commend all of the folks with Trail Trekkers, and for you taking on that challenge. When you asked me to do something and I said, I don't have the time for it, and you said, okay, you did something really good and brilliant for our community, so thank you.
Thank you for the foresight to see what could be done, too.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. We move on to item number 4, the approval of minutes. Yes.
Before we move on, I just had one item that's not on the agenda I wanted to just raise, if it's possible. So I know that there was an action made by the council recently to not go forward with the proposal for the north end, the town property, which was provided by the state. But I've seen some recent posts on social media that the state, through Representative Linehan, is moving forward on their own. And she indicated she hadn't spoken to certain people, so I gave her a call and asked her what her plans were. And she intends to do something in February, if not give another further direction from the town. And I would like to make sure that we meet and take some action as a council and provide some guidance relative to that before the state takes further action, so that we don't lose control over the future of that property. Is that something that's being planned in the near future, and can we plan to meet as a council or as at least a planning committee to discuss that, to provide guidance before the state takes action that may not be in our best interest as a
Yeah,
community?
there is, I will tell you that there is no plan right now. I haven't spoken to any of my colleagues about that, because it is, and I've seen some of the same posts that you've seen, because the state is not going to be taking action until the February timeframe. My recommendation right here off the cuff would be to allow the new council to take that up and present some information to our state delegation prior to the February deadline that was addressed by Ms. Lenahan.
Gets a little tight at
This
that
is
point.
this is our last real full meeting before the
The election.
before the election.
Yeah.
So, to squeeze in a meeting prior to the election or do something at the November meeting post-election, I don't see that as making any sense. I am aware of the timeline. I think it would be absolutely appropriate to do something early in November to address this and not wait until February. But if we do something in November, it's still 3 months prior.
Yeah, in the meantime, we're losing time on our current control of the property, which is 2 years. We're just not doing anything while that continues to.
And,
kind of
and it
click
may
away.
very well be that the new council is asking the state delegation for an extended timeline on that. I think it's too early to say what the new council will recommend.
That's fine, as long as it's on the table and we don't forget about it and we continue to, I prefer, as I did with the discussion on the school properties, that is, I've asked for over a year to move that forward and it hasn't moved forward. I just think we sit on things too long and we don't move forward. We wait for others and we
I
lose valuable
recall
time.
that I've been asking for a meeting on that in August, in September, and here we sit in October.
And I asked for it a year
So-
ago, Peter, so, and here we sit in
So
the
we're
following
both
year.
agreed on that, Mr. Mylone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, which is the approval of minutes. Do any of my colleagues need these broken out? The meetings will be approving September 9th, September 11th, September 23rd. I think the special meeting, I think we will break out, and the September 30th special meeting.
September 11th. I was not here, so can you?
So if we break out, anyone else? Okay, so let's do these in 3 different motions. So we'll call for the approval of minutes of the September 9th Town Council meeting and the September 30th Town Council special meeting. And I'll accept a motion for that. Thank you, Mr. Jinks, and thank you, Ms. Allard. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. The special meeting of special meeting of September 11th. I'll entertain a motion for that. Thank you, Mr. Jinks. Thank you, Ms. Allard. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Abstain? 1. So the vote passes unanimously by those voting, 8-0-1. Mr. Walsh abstains. And finally, the Town Council special meeting of September 23rd. I'll entertain a motion for that. Mr. Jinks and Ms. Allard, thank you. With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously with 2 abstentions, Mr. Jinks and Mr. Talbot. Moving on to the consent calendar, Mr. Jinks, item number 5.
Be resolved, Town Council approves resolution number 101425-1. Be resolved, Town Council approves the consent calendar for October 14th, 2025 as follows.
We have a motion and a second from Ms. Pearson. Thank you. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Item number 6, there are no items removed from the consent calendar. Item number 7, there is no old business to discuss. Item number 8 is new business. And item number A, or item letter A of new business is discussion and possible action, amendments to the Public Building Commission ordinance. Ms. Allard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 101425-2. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Ordinance Review Committee, the Town Council hereby adopts the following amendment, Section 2-26, Public Building Commission Ordinance as follows.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you. I saw Mr. Veliber's hand first. Mr. Veliber, for discussion purposes, Mr. D'Onofrio, will you handle the discussion portion, please?
Sure. The amendments to the PBC ordinance are intended to do two things. Number one, to better reflect the manner in which the PBC operates. And number two, to clean up the ordinance by elaborating on some of the tasks that are delegated without additional town council involvement to the PBC. Just going through it quickly, the first section, 2-26A, really the two clarifications are that the existing ordinance provided that the purpose of the PBC is to oversee the design and construction of all public building projects, but in reality, it's only those projects that are referred to the commission by the town council. So for example, the two school projects right now that have a school building committee don't go to the PBC and are not covered by this ordinance. Second change in the purpose paragraph is just to clarify that the purpose is to assure the town the highest quality facility at the lowest possible costs in accordance with the project schedule through the coordinated efforts of a single public agency. Substantive changes that are made to the powers and duties, which is 2-26C2. Again, identifying that the PBC, in discharging its responsibilities concerning design and construction and procurement of building projects, has to comply with the town charter, town ordinances, and all other applicable federal, state, and local laws. We also added a provision to help the PBC members going forward. As there's new members coming on, it's helpful to have an ordinance that clearly identifies for them what they're supposed to be doing. And so we added things like having the PBC determine the project delivery method that's in the best interest of the town for each specific project, prioritizing quality, budget, and schedule for each project. We identified the statutory obligation of all municipalities that solicit bids for projects over the bid threshold, which in Cheshire is $35,000, to make awards to the lowest responsible qualified bidder following public bidding, and to procure professional services using requests for qualifications and requests for proposals. We specified that all vendors have to enter into written contracts, and that to avoid delays, the town's proposed form of contract shall be included with the invitation to bid or request for proposals. That's something we've been doing the last 4 years on a regular basis to make sure that the town obtains the best terms and conditions contractually, rather than wait until after a bid is awarded and the town then has no leverage to negotiate favorable contract terms. So we've been including contracts with invitations to bid and RFPs, and requiring the bidders to acknowledge and agree that if awarded a contract, they'll sign the town's contract without modification or alteration. So that eliminates a lot of the haggling or post-award negotiation that really shouldn't be taking place anyway. We then have some additional provisions that carve out, if you will, some of the streamlined processes, specifically with respect to any project for which the town has applied to receive or has received state or federal grant funding, or for which the town intends to seek or utilize federal or state grant funding, or for which the appropriation or total cost estimate exceeds $25 million. So for those three categories of projects, the PBC has to come to the council prior to proceeding to the construction documents phase, prior to proceeding to the bidding phase, prior to proceeding to the construction phase, and prior to entering into contracts on those projects in excess of $50,000. So that gives the town council basically a belt and suspenders role in ensuring that any projects that are being funded with grant money or any large projects are being handled the way that the town council, who's ultimately responsible for the PBC, wants them handled. We also have some additional provisions that are added at the end that are more to inform current and future PBC members as to limitations on authority. Specifically, there's a prohibition on contracting in excess of the appropriation. That comes right out of state statute and town charter. And then we also have a requirement that the commission review and forward on a monthly basis a written report that provides the council with information about total project costs to date, total contracts approved and awarded to date, schedule status and estimated completion dates, and information about change orders. And of course, another provision saying that you can't enter into any contracts without money being in place before you commit the town, whether it's a change order or a contract. So those are the basic changes that are made to the ordinance. Again, the idea is to beef it up so that there's better public understanding, both with respect to future members of the PBC and the public at large, about what it is the PBC should be doing, as well as clarify the role of the town council with respect to projects that it refers to the PBC.
Thank you, Mr. D'Onofrio. Questions from colleagues? Mr. Malone.
I don't have a question. I want to make a comment. I am liaison to Public Building Commission. They do a very good job. They take their responsibilities very seriously. I want to commend all of them, and particularly Chairman McKinney, for raising these issues and these concerns. And thank Attorney D'Onofrio for listening to them and incorporating that and more than they even raised at some of our meetings. So I think this was well done, and it's a big improvement. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Mr. Veliber and then Ms. Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo those sentiments as well. As the former ordinance Review Committee Chairman, I know that the changes to the Public Building Commission have been on the table, off the table, on the table, off the... So we've been working at this for a while with many different ways to come about to somehow to streamline this process. And so I'd like to thank the Public Building Commission, as well as Attorney D'Onofrio, for helping bring this to a good resolution, to a good an ordinance change, and I think this will be great for us in terms of finally streamlining that process to get the Public Building Commission on a more clear path as far as going forward. So thank you to all involved putting that together.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Ms. Kramer.
I just wanted to take a second to point out an observation that I'm making, and that is it bleeds into B, which is going to be possible action on the delayed demolition ordinance. And how long has this ordinance that we're making amendments to been on the books?
44 years.
44 years. So in that 44 years, the need of the ordinance, the design of the ordinance has changed. It came before the ordinance committee, went through a discussion process, and was fixed to be better suited to our current community. So that gives me hope that ordinances that we pass to start a process that needs to be started can evolve and be worked on over the course of, its use to make it perfect over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Anyone else? Ms. Allard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you to the PBC, thank you to Attorney D'Onofrio, thank you to the ORC members who worked hard on this. When I was first elected and appointed to the ORC, I learned that this was something that was on the to-do list for the ORC for quite a while, and I had no idea what it was about, none. And so it was my goal to end my term with this completed. I'm happy that it's at the table today. I hope that we can actually, have a resolution to this. And also, to Ms. Kramer's point, I also wanted to say this is a fine example of how ordinances work. They are living, breathing documents. They're not set in stone and meant to be the end-all, be-all. When it's determined that something isn't quite working the way it should, it doesn't have to come from the council to determine that. The council is not in the day-to-day grind of actually working the town. Many times, we learn about the issues from the members of the town who are telling us, this is just not quite working. So we suggest maybe a change. Can we talk about this in committee? Can we actually bring this up and make things better? It's a collaborative effort, and it's a constant collaborative effort. So this is a fine example that all ordinances really should be scrutinized. We should make sure that they work for the town, and if they don't, that's what the council is for. That's what the discussion is all about. That's what the collaboration is all about. And I just want to, being this being my last probably full, official meeting, I will probably appear next month, I believe, but, so, I hope so too.
We're expecting you to.
I hope so. I'm hoping so. But I just wanted to make the point for everybody in the room and for everybody listening. The work that goes into running a town is amazing. It is amazing. So thank you so much to Sean. Thank you so much to Jeff, Andrew, everybody, Jim, everybody, Dr. Solon. Everybody who puts the work in to actually run this town. They are the ones who make this town a great place. And the community absolutely has a voice, but please recognize that the council is really just more of a bridge between the community and the town. So when there are concerns, definitely it is a living, breathing thing that we should address as we go. So just wanted to say that. Thank you to everybody for all of your hard work, and I'm so, so, so proud that this is actually being addressed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. I think in my 14 years on the council, I served on ordinance as well in a previous lifetime. I don't think this has ever not been on the Ordinance Review Committee's agenda, so I know it's changed. At least this is the second change that I'm aware of, but it always seems to be there. So I think you can take a victory lap, assuming we get a positive vote tonight, that you can take a victory lap to put this one to bed for at least a little while longer until a future council takes it up to take a look at too. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, take your victory lap. Ms. Allard, the vote is unanimous.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Moves us on to item B, discussion and possible action. Read the proposed demolition delay ordinance. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 101425-3. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Ordinance Review Committee, the Town Council hereby adopts a new demolition delay ordinance as follows.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf, and thank you, Ms. Pearson. This was the discussion of a public hearing earlier this evening. In full disclosure, this, I guess it's either a positive or a negative that I've been on the council long enough that this is the second time this has come up before a town council. In full disclosure, I will tell you that I voted against it the first time. I can tell you that I'm softening on the issue, but I can tell you after tonight's public hearing, I still have more questions than I do answers. And I will use the words of Mr. Matthew Bowman, who spoke tonight, that it is my opinion anyway that this isn't quite ready for prime time. So at this time, I am going to ask for a motion to table for another ordinance review until we get some questions, specifically around the reason for the 180 days, which I know that the ordinance committee discussed. I do have questions regarding why it couldn't be 100 years and just add the Washburn properties. You know, can we also incorporate the list of properties that a speaker talked about tonight? So I'm going to ask for a motion to table, and I believe I heard a second from Mr. Walsh. So with that, I'll call for a vote on the motion to table.
I made the motion.
I'll second.
You brought it up at the
Whoever.
yeah, okay.
So I made the motion to table. Okay, so it's my motion to table, Mr. Walsh's second on the motion, so we're voting to table this for a further ORC meeting, all those.
Can we have a discussion on it? Because although you gave some additions, I have some additions I'd like to have them look at too. I mean, if you don't mind.
Sure. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. There were a lot of questions that came up, and one of them was, I mean, we don't know what our current demolition policy is, so I'd like to find out what that is. If there's a way that we could figure out how many structures fall in that 80-year versus 100-year. And I mean, I know that they had said that, you know, the town paid in 1986 to define the historic properties, and maybe we do that again and define the historic properties and use that as the main issue. But I mean, these were some of the questions that I was listening to as people were bringing them up. You know, there's being the one who lives on the ranch on Contour Drive, I don't know how he picked that one out, but my house in 10 years will be 80 years old, and I never thought of my house being an historic house. But you know, I think that's something that, you know, how in the next 10 years or 15 years, I think there was a big housing boom between 1945 and 1960 where a lot of houses were built. So that could affect what this is. So maybe we need to come up with some dates and stuff. But there's a lot of questions I think that have to be answered before we can really vote on that.
Mr. Veliber and then Mr. Jinks.
Sure, mine's just a procedural question on this. Does it, if we're tabling it, do you officially need to refer it back to ordinance, or does it just go back to, you know, does it just sit there?
Well, what I said in the table was that for an additional ORC meeting on this.
Okay, so essentially a re-referral.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure if it has to be in the motion to refer it. Thank you.
Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have some additional questions as well. I wonder if we should submit questions to, I don't know if we want to submit them to the ORC chair, or it's just each of us submit questions to be discussed during ORC, I think is maybe the way to go about it.
I think that
Rather
makes
than us
sense.
all asking questions
Yes.
now, we may as well
Yeah.
kind of, you know.
And I think some of the things, I think, you know, I think I'm comfortable enough with the way the ordinance addresses Mr. Walsh's question about just because it's an 80-year old structure doesn't mean that the 180 years, or the 180 days, sorry, will apply. It's my understanding, and Mr. Martelli, correct me if I'm wrong, that if the historic district looks at it and says, I know that Don Walsh lived in it, which makes it historic, but other than that, it is not, then there's no reason for the delay of 180 days to apply, and it could be demolished, you know, sooner. Not everything requires the full 180 days. But I think I'm hearing enough that I think my motion to table was appropriate. Sure, Mr. Mylone?
Thank you. I'm happy that we're tabling this. I was going to ask that we table it as well. I would like to add one thing. I mean, having gone through this myself, having been involved in historic buildings, the renovation of them and the demolition of them, I do think there's flaws in the system here that can be addressed. More specifically, recently, my fiance was in control of 589 South Main Street, which has a 1700s house, which was not considered historic and was not reviewed relative to a partial demolition. And she went through a lot of trouble to restore the house voluntarily because she thought it was in the best interest of the town and of her project. And I commend some of the speakers here this evening, the Bowmans that I'm personally aware of that have done the same. And I think sometimes we take for granted those people who have done that work in town and have expended tremendous personal funds to do things on their own. But in this instance, the demolition of a portion of that building, she went painlessly to try and find people who were interested in pieces of that building. And no one came. She called a number of historic organizations, and she was very disappointed that no one was interested. And in the end, when it was being demolished, all of a sudden, people were saying, wow, these are tremendous. Can we have these? Can we restore these? Can we use them? And it was the last minute kind of fire drill that they were trying to salvage pieces of this portion, partial demolition. My point is this: if you give people 180 days, they will take 170 days and then do their work. We need to put that down to a manageable time. You don't need 180 days to find someone who's interested. If they're interested, they're going to be interested in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. They don't need 6 months. That's an unnecessary time frame. It doesn't add any value to the process. If we can't get this done in 3 months, then it shouldn't be done at all, because all it does is it adds wasted time, and it adds fluff to a system, to a process that doesn't need additional fluff. It doesn't benefit anyone. So I'm strongly in favor of no more than 3 months for any demolition delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Ms. Allard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that in the Ordinance Review Committee meeting, we really did discuss a lot of these questions that were not presented here today. So I think there are a lot of answers that you haven't heard. And I don't know if Mr. Martelli can explain the notification process. We did discuss how people would be notified. We did discuss why it would be 180 days and not something shorter. So bringing it back to the ORC to discuss things that we already discussed but were not actually shared today, I'm not so sure we're going to have the same outcome. I think that maybe if you learned what the notification process would be and what the logic behind the language, it may answer some of your questions. It sounds to me from Mr. Bowman and also Mr. Bowman and also you, Mr. Malone, that there are many people who share the same desire to preserve the history. And I think that it sounds like there is overwhelming support for doing this, and having people notified would ensure that people who don't share that perspective would be notified as well. If you don't have a house of historic significance, which is actually listed on the first page of this under historically significant building or structure, it's listed, there's 7 different criterias, I believe. So it is already listed. I'm not so sure what more the ORC team would discuss or how they would make it more streamlined without making the scope so narrow that we then lose more structures. I think that we should be discussing this a little bit more tonight.
Mr. Walsh.
I went through the minutes because that's all we have, and I didn't see a lot of the answers to these questions. So perhaps either they weren't in the minutes or I'm not sure, because I did go through the minutes. But one thing that Mr. Paul Bowman did bring up, and I think it should be watched carefully, is to naming a business in town when you're referring to a structure. I think that's an insult, and I think, you know, it's a detriment to some of the small businesses in our town, and I don't think we should be using their names when we're discussing these buildings. You know, you can put the address, that's fine, but to put the name out there, I think is disrespectful, and I don't think that should happen. But, you know, I think, I did read some of these minutes, and I felt that, you know, I didn't ask these questions, because I asked these questions because I didn't see them in the minutes, but maybe, maybe that's more why we should be recording all of our meetings, so we can watch them and hear those discussions, because I think a lot of times when you read the minutes, you don't get everything that's discussed, so.
Well, I personally feel that having just heard the public hearing tonight, not having seen anything other than the finalized ordinance, that I would like to be further educated on this. As I said, I'm softening and could be persuaded, but I still think I have enough questions. So, and let me just finish, Mr. Wolf, and then I'll come to you. Mr. D'Onofrio, is it appropriate to potentially have a joint ORC Town Council special meeting where all 9 of us can be in on the discussions?
It's fine. I mean, there's no issue with that. I do think that earlier suggestion about submitting questions in writing ahead of time is a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of different approaches that municipalities take. You know, if the concern is that 180 days is too long, you could have a requirement that if no objection is made within 45 days of notice, then the remainder of the 180 days is waived. There's a lot of different ways that you could deal with the different concerns that were brought up tonight. I mean, you know, it's hard because there are some properties where you would need the whole 180 days because somebody needs to go hire an architect and a contractor and get an estimate and figure out, you know, whether or not it's doable. But there's others that, you know, as John Malone said, you know, they're just gonna wait till the last minute to make a decision on a property where they should have known in the first 30 days what they were gonna do. So I think there's different things that can be done to tweak it to address all the concerns that I've heard tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf, thank you for your patience.
And that's kind of what I was going to recommend. It would be impossible for us to go back to the ordinance review committee to go and just rehash the same things and then come back and then have these same questions asked in the same forum. I think that addressing some of these concerns tonight would be a good idea. In addition to that, we did discuss why, the ordinance review committee did discuss why there was 180 days. There's reasons why the 80 years was put in. There was discussion about amending it if the 80 years was not proper. Some of these things can get hashed out a little bit further here, so I would appreciate a little more discussion, and having the chairman and Mr. Anderson and Mr. Martelli here now to go through some of these would probably be beneficial. Or if we can have a joint meeting where everyone can hear all the answers, because it's like, to Mr. Walsh's point, it's going to be the game of if it's not caught in minutes, it didn't exist.
Right.
And then we come back here, and then this is just a cycle that keeps continuing.
Yeah, I don't see a value to just sending it back to ORC with questions. I think it has to be the full 9 members of the town council in an ORC special
With questions submitted
joint
ahead of time.
joint committee like we've done,
Right.
you know, like we do our deliberations for budget.
Right.
So,
I would say if there's any other questions that we can answer now, I think that would be good. I guess if we're going to have this joint meeting, then we could save them for that. I just would like to have a guarantee that we're going to do that.
we will do it.
Okay.
as well as having the property discussion too. So with that, anything else? So it's to table and to have a joint, full town council ORC meeting where all 9 members can discuss a demolition delay ordinance. Good? Okay. All those in favor?
Second for that, that's a different motion. I'll second it.
Sorry? Then I'll amend it, and Mr. Walsh will second again. Thank you for keeping me honest, Mr. D'Onofrio. And with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all, and thank you for the discussion. It is appreciated. Brings us to item C, the adoption of fiscal year 25-26 annual capital expenditure budget and 5-year CEP. Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved, the Town Council approves Resolution Number 101-425-4. Be it resolved, the Town Council adopts the annual capital budget for fiscal year 2025-2026, items 1 through 27.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Mr. Jenks, discussion.
I'd actually want to kick that over to Sean for discussion.
Okay.
if you would.
Mr. Kimball.
All right, sure. Sorry, my laptop's about to die, so I hope I don't need it here. But, as requested from our last capital budget meeting, we have gone back. We have put forward amended proposed 5-year plan, consistent with the guidance received from the council to have the future 5 years of debt service in the model and beyond. Under that 10% policy guidance that we have for our total debt service. That did result in moving a number of projects, both from the town side and also with support from the Cheshire Public Schools staff as we went through a number of projects and moved a number to those years 6 through 10, or removed the projects. Thank you. Yeah, if you could. Thank you. Yeah. All right. The years 6 through 10, or the energy performance contract projects that we referenced last time in our last meeting. So you have those before you in the packet as recommended. Otherwise, the first year projects have remained the same as recommended from the last meeting. All the resolutions are here. We don't have to read all of the resolutions line by line, but you would want to approve those first year projects when you're ready to do so. And then again, the 5-year capital plan is in your packets as amended. And I'm happy to answer any questions or specific examples. If you'd like, I can pull them up on the screen if that's necessary later. I just have to plug the laptop in.
Why don't you put them up, Mr. Kimball, if you would, just, because I'm not sure everybody's got them in front of them, unless everybody does. Everybody's got them? Yeah. So if you've got your laptops, then you will have them, but.
Almost ready. It's just loading. There we go. All right, yeah. That'll be easy to see. I'll zoom in.
Eye chart.
And in fact, what I'll do is, what you have in your packets also is a PDF version. That's probably, I guess, just a little easier to see of the final list. But, well, we'll start with where we left off at the last budget meeting. So that's where you'll recognize this file. Again, just bear with me, I will try to zoom in on these projects. If I shorten the titles, it's a little easier. There we go. Anyway, and I know you can follow along, hopefully on your laptop. There's a PDF of this document as well. But again, just as an example, you'll see throughout a number of these sort of pink shaded squares are items from years, again, just as a refresher, from years. Really, we were focusing for this exercise on years 2 through 5 because we had a recommended first year plan, which of course is the first year of the 5-year to be adopted plan. A number of projects you see here in this far column H, which is showing up here. These are those 6 through 10 projects. So those are projects we're deferring off the 5-year plan, again, with the goal that the council outlined to have a 5-year plan that is consistent with projected debt service from our current debt service policy. You'll see just a number of projects there on the right-hand side that were moved out. Some that we had talked about before, some that we moved out in search of that goal. So again, you can see all of those projects there. A number of the other bridge improvements like South Brooksville Bridge, some of those others that we had as placeholders in the projects in order to meet the goal, we moved some of those out. And of course, for any of those that had grants associated with them, or specifically bridge projects, we had to adjust the grants also. So in some cases, while you may see a larger number moving out, you're also not getting the benefit of that grant until years 6 through 10 either. So all of those had to be kind of factored in as we came up with the recommended number. And again, as I mentioned before, we worked closely with our friends at the Cheshire Public Schools to go through their projects and move a number of identified projects out into the later years, and you'll see those mostly kind of towards the bottom of the projects list here. These projects here at the bottom, the McClary Athletic Complex, greenhouse demolition, kitchen renovation, CHS, things like those were moved out into years 6 through 10. In the end, you'll see a total of $70 million was moved out of the 5-year plan. The total 5-year plan becomes about $65 million before any offsetting grants. And in the end here at the bottom in purple, if you can see that, each of those totals, again, an average of about $12 million per year, that ended up being the number that was consistent with the future debt service charts that we talked about at our last meeting. I can show you that chart here. Again, this is the total debt service projected in gross, in total dollars. And then this is the chart we were mostly focusing on. Again, it's a projection, and this goes out to 2035, but this is showing with the assumed budget increase of 3.5% per year that we would, with at least these placeholder projects, but kind of more realistic placeholder projects at this stage, years 2 through 5, would keep us at or under that 10% policy that the council has established for debt service. So I think that was the charge we were left with. I think we've presented you that. Happy to answer any specific questions if you have them. Again, these are the bonded projects. We also have CNR. I think I mentioned this before, but I'll just do it again. We do assume, as we're projecting years 2 through 5, these are a little spread out. Now, you know what, this one's probably easier to see on my, hold on. A little easier to see as we pull up this file here. Come on. Well, maybe not much easier to see, but we are assuming increased CNR funding. Remember, this year we had 500,000. I had colored this line yellow before.
Yep.
750 and $1 million in future years. Again, those are just assumptions. That'll be up to the council and the upcoming budget for how much you want to fund CNR. But at least for the projected CNR projects as presented on this list, that's the necessary funding to fund them as they are here. Alternatively, you'd have to fund them in the operating budget or bond for some of these projects that we've identified we'd rather not be bonding for. So again, I could probably go on on various items, maybe just happy to answer any questions. So turn it over to you.
Questions from colleagues? Mr. Malone.
Is this on? Yeah. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Sean. So we just discussed this in Budget Committee as well, and I'm supportive of this motion. But to be clear, we're voting on the 2026 allocations only. I just want to make sure that's correct.
So you're voting on the annual capital budget. By charter, you have to vote on both an annual capital budget and a 5-year capital plan.
We are voting on
Only the first year is actually committed, approved, and appropriated, so to speak. So those are the projects you're authorizing. The rest, years 2 through 5, you do have to adopt a 5-year plan by the charter, but only year 1 is committed to.
So Sean, could you just go back, because we talked about this a little bit. In our budget meeting, you brought up the chart where we were trying to meet an objective for a portion of our expenditures under the 10%.
That's it, right?
And we talked in the meeting, I think, about trying to do that with a maximum growth of 2.5% when we met. And this is based on what growth now at this point?
It's at 3.5 right now. That's adjustable with this cell here. So if you adjust that to a 2.5%, again, that's projecting out 2.5% every year for the next 10 or
I
11
understand.
years here. So that would result in this graph, which again, I think is still arguably pretty consistent with certainly the spirit of the policy. We would be a little over just to see where we are, like the highest spike you see there in 2031, we would be at 10.6%. Again, we would be above what our policy is. Would not be the first time. You can see years 2006 through 2013, we were well over. We were about 12.3% or higher. So I think if it came to a bond rating presentation, you know, even at that assumption, I'd be comfortable saying, look, all of this is placeholders, and there are a lot of assumptions out 10 years, of course. But I still think that graph is at least consistent with, even if not perfectly tucked under the 10%, if that makes sense. Just my
No, I appreciate that, and I want to make sure everyone's aware of that. I'm still going to be supportive of this. I think we did a good job together, and you did an excellent job giving us some guidelines as to what we should try and achieve. And I would have preferred if we could have had our extended projections based upon 2.5%, but I know, as you said, they're not written in stone right now, and I would still look at that as an objective as we go forward. But for this evening, I think it's consistent with reasonable policy, and so for that reason, I will be supportive. Although, as I said, I would prefer that we try to fight the battle to get it into that 2.5% growth expectation. I think that's a little bit more idealistic, but I think we've done a good job otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mylone. Anyone else? Mr. Jinks?
Yeah, I just want to say briefly that, heading into this capital budget process this year, obviously our goal was to kind of clean up the out years. And I just want to thank Sean and Andrew and Jim and the schools for everything you guys did to prioritize projects and kind of, really help to, do really all the work in terms of prioritizing what is going to be coming up. And as Sean said, we're just voting on this year, and we did a good job of getting it down to a more reasonable number for this year, given what we're facing, and really limiting it to the must-haves at this point. So thank you again, and appreciate all your efforts.
Anyone else? Mr. Veliber?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the last capital budget meeting, but I've had a chance to look at this, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. This has been a good capital budget, tough capital budget, aren't they all? But just for clarification, it looks like we got 10 million or so in the first year.
10.6.
Yeah, and just for people listening at home, how much of that 10.6 is currently going to be on the ballot as referendum items?
7.3, I think.
Most of it, right?
I have it here. It's 6 point.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of it's got grants, right?
Right. Okay.
I have I think the total is 6,685.
So there's about 4 million that's not going to be at
Right,
referendum.
which is a pretty small number, so.
It's a very small number.
Right, so, so I appreciate, I think this has been a good budget, a good joint budget, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it by all the members of this council, as well as by Sean, Andrew, Jim, and everyone that's put their time into it. So thank you very much, as well as the Board of Education with their pencil sharpening and crystal ball for the future, so thank you.
Mr. Walsh?
Thank you. I also want to echo my colleagues' sentiments on this. I think it's as good as we can get right now. In the past, we've always tried to get about $2 million in road improvements, and this year it's $800,000. And we did get an email earlier in the week that kind of discussed, because I know a lot of people don't like the chip seal, but the chip seal, from what I understood, is about a third of the cost of doing a complete repaving of the road, and it could prolong the life of that road. So, like it or not, it's the best we can do with the money that we are given, and I think it's a good alternative versus doing a full repaving. But I think we can add $2 million onto that road improvement, but it's going to cost us all more. So I think it's good, but I just wanted to get that out there because I thought that was a very good email that we received to explain it's basically a third of repaving the entire road. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Anyone else? Ms. Allard?
Thanks. Thanks to everybody who put the hard work into establishing this budget. I'm happy to hear that everybody is in agreement that this has been difficult, and it is, it's been a collaborative effort, truly. And, thank you, everybody, for saying everything that you've already said. I just also would like to say something that was mentioned in previous budget meetings, that some of the items that get bonded seems to be the things that really should be in operating expenses. Like if we know every year that we need to pave roads, that really should be in the operating expense. Will that increase our potential mill rate? Yes, it will, but it is something that we know we need to do. And the reality is, for every item that we bond, we end up spending 40% more for that item. So it behooves us to, try to streamline, try to get some of those items that really should be operating expenses in the operating expense budget and plan for them appropriately with an appropriate mill rate to actually pay for them. So that way, for $100,000 worth of service, we're paying $100,000 for it and not $140,000. So that is something that I hope the future council continues to strive for. And I know that is something that you have been striving for, and I'm hoping that there is further efforts on that front in the future.
Just to clarify, if we do $1 million, it's 4%, because we're bonding it. Go ahead, Sean.
No, Dina has that
keep
right.
all
Over
of us
20
honest.
years, it's $400,000 on a million.
Okay,
It's
so
40%.
Ms. Allard is correct. My apologies. Ms. Pearson?
Likewise, I want to thank everyone during this difficult process, and I want to echo Councilwoman Allard's comments regarding moving items that ought to be in the operating budget to the operating budget. And I understand Councilman Malone's desire to decrease potential expenses going forward, but I think if we're going to truly be realistic and actually think long-term and move items to the operating budget, we're going to have to it's going to make that really difficult, right? I also thank all of my counselors in terms of, there were some late-minute additions, and so Councilman Walsh, I know you wanted You had requested some additions in regards to the hydrant maintenance, and so we have added that. So we did make some last-minute additions. I want to thank the folks on the Board of Ed and Sean as well, and Jim Jascott with these final cuts that you made in terms of trying to assist us in identifying items that we could potentially move further out to 6 to 10 years. I realize that's not ideal. But understanding where we are, we appreciate all the work you put into identifying some of those items at this time. So again, I am supportive of this budget, and many, many hours went into determining where we are, and I thank all those who were involved and attended these meetings and engaged in those discussions.
Ms. Kramer.
Thank you, Chairman Talbot. I just wanted to mention thank you to everybody who's been working on this tirelessly for months, and I am happy with where we've landed. I wanted to reiterate two things. I strongly believe in what Councilwoman Allard just mentioned and echoed by Councilwoman Pearson. We do really need to look at bonding fewer projects just to not put the burden of the debt on future generations of Cheshirites. And the second thing I wanted to mention and thank Sean and everybody in the town for is having such a depth of knowledge and expertise, and also at the Board of Ed, so that we can rely on your advice as to which projects take precedent over others, so that we're not making a decision on machinery. We really do take everything and all of your advice into account when it comes to deciding on these projects that that are must-haves rather than are nice-to-haves. And thank you, everybody, for working so closely and putting up with sometimes my very rudimentary questions, but the information is invaluable. And onward and upward for Cheshire with this budget.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Anyone else? Ms. Kramer, I'm sorry. I do that all the time. Mr. Mylone.
I'm glad Dina mentioned what she did about putting things in the operating budget. I think that's, that is smart business. And I concur that to the extent that future councils can do that, that'll benefit the town long-term. My only difference in how I would approach it, it doesn't necessarily mean an increase in mill rate. It may mean harder choices going forward. I object to the concept that we have an endless revenue of income to the town. I think we have to balance our expenses with what's reasonable for our townspeople to pay, and we can't expect that if we need to do something, we always have to find in that it's up to the townspeople to just pay for it. We need to make hard choices to keep their taxes at a reasonable level while we make these decisions. So increases in mill rate should not always be the outcome of a budgetary process.
Ms. Allard.
I never meant to imply that that was the case. Of course, we need to make difficult decisions. That is exactly what we did throughout this whole entire budget process, was make those difficult decisions. And boy, did we talk about absolutely everything we possibly could. So I agree with you. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be an increase in mill rate. But we need to make sure, I guess the analogy would be, if you're paying full price for a dinner and getting only 60% of it, that's what we're doing if we're not planning for the things that we know we will need to spend each and every year. So I want to make sure that Cheshire gets the best bang for their buck. And sometimes, putting things on the debt service means that you're spending more in the long run. So I just want to make sure that we're all sensitive to that. But I never meant to imply that always we're using the taxpayer to fund everything. In fact, I can tell you that we have an excellent team on this town who are always looking for grants to offset expenditures. So kudos to them.
Anyone else? I'll take the last word then. So I apologize for messing up your numbers, but I think your point is extremely well taken, that we need to look at recurring maintenance items as operating budget. When you're asking the taxpayers to provide $1 million, but you're making them by way of the use of the capital expenditures pay 1.4 million, you're doing them a disservice. Especially with items that are not going to last for 20 years. So we need to find ways, and that will also lower those little spikes that, that you see that are above the 10% range. You know, despite the vote on the operating budget this year, there was no question in my mind that we worked as a group to come up with the best possible scenario, given the fact that we started in a $15 million hole. So, no, I agree with you, Mr. Milone, and I've sat on councils where there has been 0 mill rates and supported them willingly. So, it doesn't always have to be a mill rate thing, but I think with what we're faced with, if we look at capital a different way, especially as we pay the $160 million for the 2 new schools, it is incumbent upon us to put things into operating budget, because debt service, as you see it, there's debt service in real time. So it behooves us to look at putting some of the capital items into operating going forward as would be prudent for future councils. And I hope that they can go back and play all of the comments from my colleagues. With that, I will thank Dr. Solon, Mr. Massiana, Ms. Taylor, Mr. And I'll call him properly, Mr. Martelli, and not Platt quarterback Marinelli. I want to thank Mr. Jascott and Mr. Kimball for all their work on this. And I want to thank my 8 colleagues who did a tremendous job. Again, looking at must-haves versus nice-to-haves. And I think it's echoed by Mr. Veliber's comments that $4 million outside of the referendum items isn't necessarily a bad number to be presenting. And with that, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Moving on to item number D, or item letter D, I do that all the time. Approval of $33,378
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I apologize, but there are 2 resolutions.
Oh,
with
I'm
the
sorry,
budget.
I'm
Yep.
sorry. We did the first year and not, so before I do that, I will go back to Mr. Jinks for item number 5.
Thank you very much. That's great. Be resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 101425-5. Be resolved the Town Council adopts the 5-year capital expenditure plan for fiscal year 2025-2026 through the fiscal year 2029 to 2030 in accordance with the recommendation of the Town Council Budget Committee.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jinks, thank you, Ms. Pearson, and thank you, Mr. Kimball, for reminding me that we needed to do the other 4. So with that, is there any discussion that needs to happen regarding the years 2 through 6? I don't see any hands, so I will call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously, which brings us now to letter D, the approval of $33,378 appropriation from NEF funds to the Board of Education for the Food Waste and Composting Program at Chapman, Doolittle, and Dodd. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 101425-6. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Sustainability Committee, the Town Council hereby appropriates $33,378 from the NEF Fund Special Revenue Account to the Board of Education for the Food Waste and Composting Program at Chapman Elementary School, Doolittle School, and Dodd Middle School. And be it further resolved that this appropriation includes the stipulation that should the Board of Education be awarded funding through the Connecticut Deep Materials Management Infrastructure Grant Program, the appropriated funds in the amount of $33,378 will be reimbursed back to the NEF Fund's Special Revenue Account.
Second. Thank you, Ms. Pearson. And Mr. Walsh, thank you. Ms. Pearson, back to you for discussion.
Yes, so documentation was provided in your packets regarding the food waste composting program. So we're going to be continuing that program at Chapman and Doolittle, and because upfront costs are less, it's just a matter of maintaining those programs this next year. We will need for those two programs $18,419. And then we're going to be adding Dodd. There will be upfront costs necessary to implement the program at Dodd. So the total for the entire, and that will be, what is it, $14,959? Am I getting that right? For a total of $33,378.
Yeah.
Okay. I commend the the Director of Food Services, Erica Bighetti, done a fabulous job. Thankful for her. You also had a fabulous presentation at our Sustainability Fair last weekend, and so she was there. That booth was busy educating the community about what we're doing in our schools in regards to food waste diversion, which is something we need to do to address the food waste crisis, and well, the waste management crisis that is in the state of Connecticut. So I commend all of you for your work in supporting Erica on these projects.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Mr. Walsh.
All right. Thank you, and thank you to the Board of Ed for this project. This is something that, when I was a solid waste chairman several years back, I was really pushing to get started in our schools. I felt that it was an important thing to teach the young people the importance of recycling and taking care of the environment and the earth. I do feel that, what we're doing is we're moving forward with this, and I know the state has mandated that schools over a certain size by, I think, 2026 or 27 are going to be mandatory to do this, so we're ahead of the game on this. I will ask that the Board of Ed, though, take this program into their budget in the future, because I feel that the NEF funds, I was hoping to use some of the NEF funds to do at least a bulk trash drop-off at the landfill this year, but we're using the money to do this instead, and I think it does belong in the Board of Ed budget anyway, and I'm sure that come January, February, when they're working on that, it will have to be in there, because the two new schools coming on are gonna need it, and the high school is probably gonna need it too, so might as well do them all. But yeah, I do think this is a great program, and Erica has been very good bringing unusual snacks to these meetings, which is pretty good too. But I think she cares about this program a lot, and I think she's teaching the kids, the importance and how to separate their foods, and eventually they'll eat all the good stuff and get rid of the bad stuff. But right now they're learning, and I think it's a great program, and I'll support this.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Kramer?
Just wanted to thank Councilwoman Pearson for her drive behind the food waste diversion in Cheshire. I've been, as we come to the close of this two-year term, I've been looking over old videos on YouTube of what we were trying to accomplish. And one of the things that was mentioned multiple times was composting at the schools for waste management and waste diversion as the cost of these things went up in the communities. And I just want to say this is kind of like a great moment to look back and to see an accomplishment that happened over the last 2 years, because we were, I know it's been being worked on, but we really were addressing the food waste diversion in the schools, and here we are. Not only is it already going on in schools, but we're looking to expand it. And congratulations, Fiona, on the onus of pushing this stuff uphill constantly. It's appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Ms. Allard?
Thank you. I echo Tricia's sentiment to Fiona. Thank you so much. I truly have learned a lot about waste management and the importance of all of this. I just wanted to ask a question specifically about the NEF funds, because I had a member of the community had a concern about the compost pile that we voted for. I want to say it was in April, when Boulder Knoll came to one of our meetings and asked for a portion of the NEF funds. I wanted to just provide some clarity and potentially ask some questions, because that particular person, was like, "You're paying tax dollars for a pile of dirt." And I wanted to, first of all, say that this is not tax dollars. These are special funds that are received as a result of a surcharge for the little nips that everybody buys. And the funds that we receive, they're pretty vast. There's a lot of them. That's a lot of shots of Fireball. And the reason why that surcharge was imposed, why that legislation was made, is because, as we know, people drink them and then throw them on the street. So those are not tax dollars. Those are, that is money that we receive as a result of that legislation, and it has limited uses. We cannot just take those funds and pave the roads. We can't take them and do anything with them. So I was wondering if you can provide a little bit of clarity on, the boundaries with which we need to use those funds. I'm wondering if you can provide some other information. I'd like to know what the balance of that NEF fund is. To my understanding, when Boulder Knoll came to the council to ask for it, they wanted to start a community compost service and also provide education to the community. Wanted to also let you know that I reached out to Boulder Knoll and I asked for some data on how are things going. And I was kind of impressed with what they told me, that since April, it's only been about 6 months, that they have processed approximately 5,000 pounds of food waste. So it's an opportunity for the community to also learn about truly what needs to be done and how we can have an impact even on a small level. So I was really very impressed with that. With that food waste, they actually process it and make organic mulch. They were able to create approximately 12 cubic yards of mulch. But the bigger win here is, I think, the community outreach and the education that it's providing members of the community and extending it beyond the kids in school. So I don't know if you have any other information on what the fund balances are and also what those parameters are. So that way members of the community can know that, when we spend $5,000 on a dirt pile, it's not actually tax dollars. And the reason why is because it actually fit the criteria of what that legislation required.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman Allard. We have received, according to Sean's reports back to us here and Andrew's reports back to us, $70,000, $723.54 since the inception of this fund. We have expended up until this point $35,816.62 on implementing these school composting programs. And as you said, an additional $5,000 that we also allocated to Boulder Knoll. And again, these NEF funds can only be used for litter pickup, for food waste diversion or waste diversion, so there's very limited use for these funds. And we felt that these were programs that were beneficial to the community. The schools are an ideal place to start. As you stated, Councilman Walsh, starting in the schools when they're young, educating students about diverting food waste and reducing our waste costs is important. And then supporting Boulder Knoll. It is a community farm. It's on town-owned open space. They are a nonprofit, and they proposed opening up this space for aerobic composting that would be open to the public. So just as we have the mattress drop-off and we have the electronics recycling for our community, and we're hoping for bulk also pickup that's something we would very much like. I agree in terms of bulk pickup at the transfer station. Those are all services that we very much would like to provide for the community. Right now, with this expenditure, we'll be left with just about, $1,000 thereabouts, or just over $1,000, so there won't be much left of this fund. We are due for another, it's usually about $10,000 each time we've been receiving on average. Can you answer that?
Yeah, I was just looking at Noel, because I think at the time of the Sustainability Committee meeting, I think those numbers were correct, but I think we were about to receive another payment. Is that right,
We
Noel?
receive another one?
Or do we not? Because I know it was most.
Yeah, it's about now that we receive another one, yeah.
It's probably in the next few weeks. Yeah, so it's, I think, accurate as of today, but soon we should be getting that. It's every 6 months that we get another installment.
And it's been on average about 10,000 thereabouts.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, that's right.
So, so certainly we will not, you're absolutely, you are correct, we will not be able to continue to sustain the school fund. So this is something that the town council, future town council will need to take into account. If the town council is supporting of these programs, we're going to consider that schools are going to need additional funding to support supporting these kinds of programs in our schools. So I hope that answers most of your questions. I appreciate it.
It does, and if I just may say on behalf of Boulder Knoll, anybody in the community who wants to participate in this, they're welcome to. You don't need to be a member of Boulder Knoll. You can just send an email to info@friendsofboulderknoll.com. They'll give you a little bucket. You don't have to use their bucket. They'll give you information on what goes in there, and then you can drop off your food scraps and appropriate waste materials, and they also have a little app that you can download, and this is how they know how their impact is. Members who contribute food scraps or food waste can download the app and list their contribution. So that being said, not all people who contribute to this actually use the app. So this amount of 5,000 pounds of food waste is probably a conservative number, which I thought was impressive.
Mr. Velaber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am in support of this. I think this has been a great program, and I think it, as it expands, I do think eventually this is when it becomes mandated. It's going to become too big to necessarily be covered by the NEF funds, but we're going to have to deal with it either through more funding or through the Board of Ed budget. But I would just like to say I'm truly appreciative that the Sustainability Committee, as well as this council, has continued to see fit to continue this project that Don and I, along with Jim, started. So I think this is it's been a good contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Velaber. Anyone else? Seeing none. Quick question for Dr. Solon or your team. I assume that we have applied for the Connecticut Deep Materials Management Infrastructure Grant? Yes. Please, if you would, Ms. Taylor, thank you. And my follow-up to that is, so the answer was yes, the Board of Education has applied for that. When will we hear on the DEEP awards?
Yeah, so we did apply for that in June 2025 to support basically 2 years of composting for all of our schools, where we do the rollout this year, where we keep it at Chapman and Doolittle and expand to Dodd, and then the following year expand to all of our schools. We were hoping to hear back in August, but we have not heard anything back. I think Erica checked in a few weeks ago, and they still have not awarded any of the grants yet.
Okay.
So
So hopefully any day now.
that would be great. Yes.
I
Please.
just want to let you, we really appreciate your pursuing that grant. That was something that, yeah, we saw was available immediately. You applied for that, saw the grant that you put together. It's amazing. I recognize that our community doesn't exactly quite fit some of the parameters, but we're still hoping perhaps that we might receive it. So again, appreciate the time and energy put into trying to support that effort in our schools here.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor, and I will absolutely support this as well. So, seeing nothing further, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Bring us to acceptance, item E, acceptance and appropriation of $290,538.05 Clean Water Fund grant administered through the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to conduct inflow and infiltration, plant capacity, and force main evaluations, and authorization to execute said grant agreement. Ms. Kramer.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 101-425-7. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby authorizes application for an acceptance and appropriation of a Clean Water Fund Program grant in the amount of $290,538.05 from the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to be used to conduct inflow and infiltration, plant capacity, and force main evaluations. And be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes Town Manager Sean M. Kimball to execute any and all agreements and documents necessary for said grant.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Discussion. Mr. Kimball, do you want to,
Yep, no problem. It's relatively straightforward. Back in January, the council authorized the contract with Wright Pierce for the INI study, and we did it through the DEEP, in partnership with DEEP and the Clean Water Fund program. So you'll recall that the total contract was $528,000. The way the Clean Water Fund grant share program works is 55% grant funded, 45% local share and match. That's part of the, actually, a portion of the council approved INI capital budget money that we were just approving earlier in the meeting too, to cover our share. But basically, you're accepting or being asked to accept the $290,538, 55% matching grant towards the INI study.
questions for Mr. Kimball? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is F, approval of a multi-year municipal electronic voting equipment agreement. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 101-425-8. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby authorizes the execution of municipal electronic voting equipment agreement by and between the Town of Cheshire and the State of Connecticut Office of Secretary of the State, and be it further resolved that the Town Manager is authorized and directed to execute on behalf of the town said agreement in the form and upon the terms and conditions as presented at this meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. For discussion, back to you, Ms. Pearson.
I'm going to turn this over actually to Mr. Kimball.
Sure, I'll take it. So this comes from our registrars, and I'll just kind of read part of the background. At the end of the most recent legislative session, Public Act 25-5 was enacted, which in part permitted the Secretary of State to gift outright to each municipality the new voting hardware and software licenses to the entire state is using for the first time this election cycle. This act supplanted the lease arrangement imposed on the towns when the Secretary of State first made the statewide 8-figure investment in this new equipment. And so now the town is being asked to execute the attached municipal voting equipment agreement, which sets forth and obligates the town to absorb the responsibility and cost of the equipment maintenance. This is the same arrangement we had previously prior to this most recent lease arrangement, but we've always had the funds. We talked about this a little bit during the budget. This year we have funds available for the maintenance agreements that are associated with the voting machines, and so we do have that appropriated in the operating budget, and this is an agreement that supports that arrangement going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item G, the acceptance and appropriation of a donation of land for purposes of open space associated with Blackberry Woods development on Marion Road. Ms. Pearson, back to you.
One moment. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 101425-9, whereas Blackberry Woods LLC has offered to donate 41.3+ acres of land located at the Marion Road subdivision at 1481 and 1512 Marion Road, Blackberry Woods Development, to the Town of Cheshire for the purposes of open space, and whereas a Phase 1 environmental review has been completed for the property and no environmental concerns were found by said investigation, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council accepts said property donation and directs and empowers the town manager and other proper officer to enter into, execute, deliver, seal, and perform on behalf of the town deeds or other instruments as may be necessary to consummate said acceptance in the form and upon the terms and conditions as presented at this meeting, and be it further resolved that the deed as executed will be filed on the land records of the town of Cheshire.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Kimball, discussion? Thank you.
So we've discussed this in executive session previously as a council, but we are in receipt of this offer for the 41 acres as indicated in the resolution. This is above the Blackberry Woods development towards 84, bordering 84. And it's being donated for the purpose of open space management. That was part of the approval. Part of the stipulation in the subdivision approval was that this would be deed restricted or donated in some way to preserve this 41 acres. So the offer from the developer is to donate it to the town, and that's what you have for you this evening to consider.
Questions or comments? Ms. Pearson?
I believe that this connects existing open spaces, and so this will allow us to connect the Casertano property as well as some other open spaces. So this is, we benefit greatly from that. We're now creating these green corridors. So we thank them very much for this donation.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote.
Sorry,
Hang on,
Yep.
Mr.
So-
Veliver.
Yeah, question.
Just under the wire, Mr.
I know.
Veliver.
I'm looking at the map, and I'm just curious. Obviously it connects with it, but does it only connect to that one little point in the corner?
Yes.
Okay. So how do we just have to hop, skip, and jump over that corner?
You got to walk very carefully.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. I see it touches, just touches it. Perfect. Thank you.
Anything, Mr. Mylone? See what you started, Mr. Veliver?
Yeah, I know. Can we at least put on staff's agenda the option of pursuing kind of some access rights over in that, around that corner? So if we have to get equipment in there for any reason, that we get equipment in there? I mean, it seems like it's worth pursuing at this point.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop this tonight. I just think, as we go forward, we should.
You mean access, like, with the joint property owner to make the...
Just to get, maybe get a 10-foot strip or a 20-foot strip so that, with an easement or buy a little teeny triangle just so we can get a piece of equipment in there if we had to? Sure. Okay.
Do we know what we know that it touches, do we know what the,
Yeah, the adjoining, there's two other...
thank you, Mr. Martelli.
One of which is the back part of the former Epiphany Church property on Huckins Road. So that property goes all the way back and then touches the top part of the Blackberry Woods subdivision. And then the other is privately owned, the top lot at Balsam Place. So it all kind of, all these parcels all come together, these
Yeah.
little points in the corner. So the church off of Huckins, I would think would probably be the easiest because that's a large piece of property that's in the back half of their property holding there that's separated by a brook that comes, Cuff Brook actually comes through the back there. I know because this is where I hike regularly. So.
Yeah.
The lay of the land, so to speak. It's always Cuff Brook.
Yeah, it always comes back.
Right.
Good, excellent. Anything further from colleagues? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Item H is the establishment of an insurance advisory study group. Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be resolved, the Town Council approves resolution number 101425-10. Be it resolved, the Town Council establishes an insurance advisory study group consisting of 3 members, and be it further resolved that said study group shall be responsible for reviewing the town's property, casualty, medical, and life insurance programs for the purpose of providing recommendations to the Town Council. And be it further resolved that the said study group shall submit their recommendations to the Town Council no later than April 1st, 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Jinks. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Malone, do you want to kick off discussion? Because I know this is an item that was near and dear to you.
No, thank you. We did, is this on? No. We all discussed this during the budget deliberations, that there was potential savings in at least health insurance that were, that may help our budget process, and it could be dramatic savings. We felt that, I think there was a general consensus that it would be helpful to get some outside review of what we're doing, and some oversight by a nonpartisan, an advisory group, hopefully from individuals who are members of the community that have a related experience that can provide some value in this area. And I think we would all benefit from it in terms of potentially saving money, but also maybe finding alternatives in our insurance process that we've overlooked in the past. So hopefully this will provide benefits to us, and if it does, it can be a group that continues over time to continue to provide that kind of guidance and advice to this process, both to the town and the Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Anything further from colleagues? Mr. Jinks.
Yeah, I'm really supporting this as well. I think that's it's a good idea. It's a good step forward as far as just being more aware of pretty complex and ever-changing marketplaces, especially in health insurance. I think that I think our town schools have done a good job over the last several years. I think that there are always opportunities to consider. I'm not sure that given the way the health insurance marketplace is going these days, that we're going to realize a lot of savings there. But this will at least give us a chance to take a look at what else may be out there, or at least add to the process we have right now, which could only be helpful. So I'm definitely supportive of this. I think it's a good step forward.
Thank you, Mr. Jinks. Ms. Allard?
I'm supportive of this. I think that this is a great idea. I just have a question on how we're going to pick these members. What criteria are we looking for?
We're looking for people that are well-versed in the insurance field. And what will happen is town staff will put out a call for resumes like we've done with other temporary study groups. To receive applications of people. We'll do a round of interviews and select the 3 finalists.
And is this a voluntary position or will
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else from colleagues? Mr. Walsh?
Just for clarification, so with the medical trust fund, I mean, is that basically I know we have the school side and the town side, but we're using the same, we have the same plan? Or can you explain that a little bit? So, because will the Board of Ed be getting involved in this as well?
Yes, yeah, they'll certainly be involved. And we share our liability auto property policies and yes, with the insurance pool, or the self-funded program, we have a common carrier in Cigna now. And when we've done that, when we've gone out to bid in the past, like we did 5 years ago, I think, on the carrier services, because it's always been self-funded, that's always been in partnership, working closely with Vin previously and now probably with Emily.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Final item for new business is item I, 824 referrals to the P and Z Commission. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 101425-11. Be it resolved that pursuant to Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes, the Town Council hereby refers the following to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the review and to issue a report. The first one is Eversource easement across the property at 414 North Brooksville Road, the Norton School. Second one is the State of Connecticut traffic easement of approximately 281 square feet at Route 10 Highland Avenue at Maple Ave and Pleasant Drive. The third one is State of Connecticut purchase of Town of Cheshire property in connection with the computerized traffic signal system on Route 10 replacement located at Country Club Road and Curve Hill Road, which is approximately 1,062 square feet. And the last one is a sidewalk construction along the northern side of Jarvis Street between 950 Jarvis and the property west of Dundee Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Wolf, do you want to, I mean, these are simply
These are just
referrals?
Yeah, these are 824 referrals for the Planning and Zoning Commission to review. Some of them are related to the future work with traffic signal improvement through the town, just right-of-way purchases. One of them is the sidewalk in relation to the new North End School. I think that's it. Sean, do you have, yeah, the power one?
The Eversource easement, similar to the one we had with Barnum Elementary, for easement on the property for the utilities.
Mr. Walsh.
The other one is the Curve Hill one, where we, because we did the sidewalks, but we kept about 30 or 40 feet. So would that include them finishing off that sidewalk to, do you know? We don't know.
I don't know definitively, but
This is definitely what this is.
That's not what this is.
No,
This is just for the
for
traffic
the
signal.
Installation of the computerized
Yeah.
traffic control system on the corner of Country Club Road.
So that's on Country Club, not on Curve Hill.
It's on the Country Club side.
Side, okay.
It's where that little like parklet is.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
we will be again asking through Public Works to see, or get some confirmation. As they make upgrades,
Someday.
depending on the upgrades at the intersection, as the council knows, the state is responsible for certain, again, stretch of sidewalk improvements in and around when ramps have been improved or other physical improvements have been made. So we will remind them of that and hope that this project could potentially be both. But as Andrew said, we know that the project going all the way through town on Route 10 that the state will be embarking on is mostly the mast heads in the system, signal system upgrade. So whether that is one and the same or not, we'll just
Are the signal grades the ones with the cameras on them too, that like they have on the corner of Maple and West Main, where they know that a car's coming or not coming, and they?
It should be. I don't know specifically if it's the exact same one as the one on Maple, because the technology, I think,
Only
has
because I think
changed over time.
that helps the traffic flow a lot. So.
It does. Yeah, it's definitely intended for
Yeah.
this, exactly. Whether it's exact cameras or these, again, these motion capture things they use now.
Anything further? Mr. Veliver? Oh, okay. You were waving no. Okay. But with that, nothing further. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Moves us to item 9, the town manager's report and communications. Mr. Kimball.
Loading. Uh-oh. There he goes. All right. I was really trying to save a tree there. I did it. All right. Thank you, everybody. So you have your town manager report in your packet. Just a few quick updates. A reminder, early voting begins on Monday, October 20th, and extends through November 2nd. Voting hours here at Cheshire Town Hall, and they'll be right here in Cheshire in Council Chambers on the third floor of Cheshire Town Hall. Voting hours will be 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on all days, with the exception of October 28th and 30th, which the hours will be extended from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. For any questions, please call the registrar's office at 203-271-6680. Just a reminder that in addition to the municipal elections, we have the referendum projects. There are 7 projects, as we mentioned earlier. Those projects are the splash pad, the open space land acquisition, fire alarm control system at Cheshire High, synthetic turf field replacement at Cheshire High, the south parking lot reconfiguration at Cheshire High School, the road improvement program, and the acquisition of a fire truck. The explanatory text is available on our website at the link provided. With respect to the 2025 Cheshire Fall Festival, I just want to say thank you to our amazing Cheshire Chamber of Commerce, their staff and volunteers, and the numerous town departments and staff who work together to organize an incredible fall festival utilizing the expanded Great Lawn area of Bartland Park. Also want to, of course, thank all the vendors and participants that were showcased. There's some pictures there below that you'll see. The weather was beautiful and the feedback was very positive from attendees and vendors alike. Special thanks to our Public Works and Grounds team for making the park look so wonderful. Again, some nice drone footage there of the new space being used. As referenced also earlier in the meeting, our monthly mattress and electronics recycling events have been continuing. We have additional collections scheduled for Saturday, November 8th and Saturday, December 13th. Those are from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 1304 Waterbury Road. And again, the event is open to Cheshire residents only, proof of residency required. And for more information, please contact the Public Works Department. There's a little more information about mattresses and electronics. But furthermore, we also have leaf collection season beginning. This will begin on Monday, November 3rd. Residents can bring their leaves in biodegradable bags for disposal at the Public Works Garage at 1286 Waterbury Road on Monday mornings from 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. On a series of Mondays. But for curbside collection, leaves must be placed in curbside and biodegradable bags before 7 a.m. on Mondays for pickup by the Public Works Department on the following schedule. So for the week of November 3rd, all this is on the website, November 3rd to the 7th, the entire town, and then they alternate east and west of Route 10. The week of November 10th is the east side, the November 17th week is the west side, and so on until all streets have been collected and the program ends December 8th. So again, of course, some of this depends on how rapidly the leaves continue to fall and folks' availability, but it's always been a successful program here in town. So just a reminder to residents that will be running throughout November and into the first week of December. There are also a couple of remaining dates for household hazardous waste drop-off for the RWA. Those are Saturday, October 18th and Saturday, October 25th. The facility is open for residential waste only, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., 90 Sergeant Drive, New Haven. Just a quick update on our Emergency Operations Center. This is the grant-funded Emergency Operations Center located in the basement of Town Hall. It's nearing substantial completion. Contractors installed the video wall. There's a picture there. Panels last week and are working on the associated IT infrastructure. Furniture and radio console components have been ordered and are awaiting delivery. The EOC is anticipated to be complete or substantially complete in about a month. So you'll see the upgrades to those there. And then a few confirmed council meetings. The Ordinance Review Committee is meeting Tuesday, October 28th. Our next regular meeting is November 12th. And there will be a planning meeting also, I believe, for October 30th. That is pending confirmation. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Questions or comments for Mr. Kimball? Seeing none, I will give two. One, just I know Mr. Kimball mentioned it in his report, but a special shout out to Public Works for their work at Fall Festival. Bartland Park looks and looked amazing that day and continues to look fantastic. It is their hard work and dedication that is the reason why it looks so good. So thank you to our Public Works Department. Mr. Kimball, because we have a EOC that will be ready come the winter season, please do not have any winter storms that requires us to use it. The less we use an emergency operations center, the more effective it absolutely is. So for colleagues, police, fire, economic development, as well as Next Gen School Building Committee are in your packets. Please peruse those. Mr. Martelli has provided some excellent photos in there as well, and so I encourage you to take a look at that. Which brings us to item 10, reports of committees of the council, chairman's reports, starting to my left, Ms. Kramer.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Wolf, Ms. Allard.
The ORC met to discuss the PBC ordinance and the demo delay ordinance. As you know, our next meeting is on 10/28. We will be addressing potential changes to the blight ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Jinks?
As you may know, the Budget Committee passed the capital budget tonight and the 5-year capital plan.
And Ms. Pearson?
Nothing to report.
I would like to make a referral, the review of, it was spoken about earlier this evening, the review of the Veterans Tax Exemption to the Budget Committee. So that is on their radar, as well as the referral of review of various town properties to the Planning Committee. So we will be taking a look at those as well. Moving on to liaison reports, again, starting to my left, Ms. Kramer.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Wolf? Ms. Allard?
I'll turn my mic on this time. Okay. The Public Safety Commission met on October 7th. They discussed, they had a follow-up regarding a question regarding chicanes in town and confirmed that the chicanes were installed in accordance with manufacturer's guidelines as well as ADA compliance. However, I guess it was also discussed that we may be looking into possible changes to making the chicanes more maneuverable for easier accessibility for people who have oversized adaptive equipment, I guess. And then there was also a discussion about a recent legislation that was passed for Stop the Bleed, and I think that that was going to be something that we're going to try to figure out whose purview that falls under. That's basically what they talked about. Their next meeting is going to be on November 13th at 6:30 in room 207. And then also I wanted to share that the Cheshire Youth and Human Services Committee met on September 10th, and they discussed a lot of great things. They discussed they had a Wellness in Action event that was on Saturday, September 20th. Also, the library has begun their fall programming. There's going to be a Cheshire Votes program and also a program regarding vetting news sources, which I'm sure will be well attended. The YMCA fall fitness classes have begun. They're going to be planning a harvest trail race for October 25th. Chesbrookah is going to be starting flu clinics at their new location, I believe. And the Cheshire Housing Authority update, most of the construction is complete, making it easier for buses and the fire department to access the complex. Cheshire Food Drive is having their 52nd annual food drive. It's scheduled for the first weekend in November. And also collaborative planning from the Youth and Human Services Committee to discuss September's Suicide Awareness Month, which you may have seen some informational pamphlets and whatnot that flyers, thank you, that they put out to the community.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Jinks? Ms. Pearson?
Parks and Recreation had a lively, long meeting. We did have the police department reporting on changes to Connecticut law regarding e-bikes, and there was lively discussion there. It was clear from the police department there have been no incidents on the trails, but there were concerns by some of the commissioners regarding some of our rules and regulations in parks, and it was discussed working with public safety on those issues. individuals from the public regarding requests for lights in the skate park in Bartlett. Multiple communities use that park, and so there were requests for lights to make that safe, particularly in the evening hours during the winter months and the fall months and early spring months. There was discussion regarding, I received some communication regarding the pool boiler, and I thank Sean Kimball and John Galwak and folks from DPW reporting back that the boiler is now functioning again and the temperature of the pool is stable. And I received confirmation from folks who wrote to me that the temperatures do seem to be stable. So we appreciate everyone's work on the pool boiler. And then Honeypot Glen Disc Golf Course opened. I know many of us were present for that, and that was a wonderful event. Lots of people are already using that golf course. It's volunteer run, volunteer created. So we appreciate all the volunteers who helped to bring Honeypot Disc Golf Course to Cheshire Park. And I think that is mostly it. Thank you all.
Mr. Walsh?
Unfortunately, I missed the last beautification meeting, but according to Mr. Marinelli, is it? There were a lot of signs that were approved. But I did attend the Cheshire Housing Authority meeting, and they had a discussion from a company called Jewel Box about an EV charging station that they may be putting over in Beachport area in case of storms and things, where they will have some kind of a charging thing that will, it's something that they're going to look into, but it's very little or no cost to them, and it's supposed to be selling back electricity and things like that. So they're looking into that. They're also doing solar work over there. Jack's Farm is moving along. I know they had to demolish the septic over there, and before they could do much of anything else. But I think they're hoping to start the construction in the spring. So moving forward.
Mr. Veliber? Mr. Malone? Nothing for miscellaneous. Mr. Veliber, appointments. Mr. Wolf, assuming none. I actually have one that is a replacement, is for the semi-sesquicentennial, otherwise known as the United States 250th Anniversary Committee. It is a replacement to Arnett Talbot, who resigned from the committee. We thank her for her work. It is the appointment of Ray Bennett of 840 North Brooksvale Road, and Mr. Bennett is a Republican. So, and I spoke with him earlier this evening, and he is, no, because it's a, right, yeah. I spoke with him earlier this evening, and he really is already started because he's been attending anyway, so he makes a perfect choice. So so that appointment is made. Mr. D'Onofrio, Town Attorney's report. Thank you, sir. Council communications. Anyone with letters to the council they would like to read into the record? Seeing none. Nothing for miscellaneous, and I believe that there is, correct me if I'm wrong, nothing for executive session. With that, last chance. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Mr. Veliber and Mr. Walsh, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Good evening.